safe traveling for you. I know southern Minnesota and the metro had a little bit of ice overnight, so it was a little slow going. But welcome everyone to the December 22nd CSAC meeting. And we'll like to call the meeting to order. Don, if you could read the roll, please.
Ron Anthony.
Here.
Julia Tella.
Here.
Kim Britt.
Here.
Amber Brown. Amber.
She's on, she looks like her chat. I don't know.
I know she was kind of traversing, so we can check in. I'll check in at Molly Brunner.
Here.
Carter Deers.
Here.
Jessica Frolick. Michelle Frisbee. Cami Gens.
Here.
Kevin Glass.
Here.
Tracy Green.
Here.
Nicholas Henderson. Don Lanoy.
Here.
Marlon Mazaros.
Here.
Kelly Mitchell.
Here.
Kurt Mortensen.
Here.
Rebecca Muscat.
He is an attendee and needs to be elevated.
Oh, I can do that. Okay. Rebecca Muscat, can you hear us?
I'm here.
Excellent. John Priam.
Here.
John Shiro.
Here.
Toby Stevens. Okay. Lane Sutherland.
Here.
Jennifer Verdea.
Here.
Barb Weckman Brecky. Okay, I'm just going to go over Amber Brown. Did you make it on? There you are.
I'm on.
Thank you. And Toby Stevens, have you made it on? Okay, we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Don. So the minutes from the November CSAC meeting were sent out. Is there any additional comments or questions on the minutes or additions? Hearing none, we'll do a global roll call on, I think, both of them. So we'll do a motion on for both of them globally, but then we'll move into the agenda first. The only thing I would notice, I believe we're going to move is it the IPV policy?
The gender responsive.
I'm sorry, gender responsive first under the draft policy approval, then we'll roll into the risk and needs assessment. So any other additions or edits to the agenda? Hearing none, we would entertain a global motion for both the minutes and the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda and the minutes.
Thank you. We had Julie with the motion and Barb with the second. Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, Don, if you could read the roll, please.
Ron Anthony.
Aye.
Ron Anthony, aye. Julia Tella.
Aye.
Julia Tella, aye. Kim Britt.
Aye.
Kim Britt, aye. Amber Brown.
Aye.
Amber Brown, aye. Molly Brunner.
Aye.
Molly Brunner, aye. Carter Deers. Carter Deers, aye. Cami Gens,
Aye.
Cami Gens, aye. Kevin Glass,
Aye.
Kevin Glass, aye. Tracy Green,
Aye.
Tracy Green, aye. Don Lanoy,
Aye.
Don Lanoy, aye. Marlon Mazaros, Marlon is an aye. Kelly Mitchell,
Yes.
Kelly Mitchell's an aye. Kurt Mortensen,
Aye.
Kurt Mortensen's an aye. Rebecca Muscat,
Aye.
Rebecca Muscat, aye. John Priam,
Aye.
John Priam, aye. John Shiro,
Aye.
John Shiro, aye. Lane Sutherland,
Sorry, aye.
Lane Sutherland, aye. Jennifer Verdea,
Aye.
Verdea, aye. And Barb Weckman Brecky, Barb Weckman Brecky, aye. That is a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Don. Then we will pass it over to Molly for the draft policy approvals. Oops.
What, I think we switched on the agenda that
Oh,
we're
you
gonna
did?
do that, which is Kelly, I believe.
Oh. And we'll pass it over to Kelly, yes.
So, Don, we had moved the gender responsive policy up because of a particular member who's only going to be here in the beginning, but I don't see that member online.
Yeah, I don't see that somebody is online right now, unfortunately. He's not in the.
I don't know if it makes sense to do it.
It's up to you, or it's up to. Are you thinking maybe she might come in a little bit, so we should go back?
I don't know. I didn't talk to her.
Yeah, she called and said she had another meeting, but she wanted to discuss the gender cultural and trauma response training. However, I thought she was gonna log on immediately, but she hasn't. If you'd like, I could try getting her a call.
Maybe let's like take a second, try giving her a call, and we'll see if we can do that. We'll just hang tight for a minute, folks.
Yep, have a good one.
Oh, all right. All right, I think we're good. So we're going to start with the gender responsive, culturally appropriate, trauma informed policy. And Kevin Glass, I'll turn it over to you to give us an update on what's changed since the last time we saw this, and then we'll open it up for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. So this deliverable 5 was tasked by the CSAC to the Minnesota statewide evidence-based practices statewide advisory committee. And so we brought this back after feedback from the last CSAC meeting with some suggestions and feedback to relook at the policy and maybe make some additions, changes to that. And so in the purpose, we did shorten it. We took out, we had mentioned about ethics and boundaries. And I know there can be some confusion when you say ethics and boundaries and what that means. And then, interchangeable words, it could be like guiding principles, things of that nature. But at this time, we felt that that was out of scope for this policy to add that language in there. So we didn't, and we just removed that second paragraph. We did add tribal nations in the purpose. So establish foundational training for Minnesota County or Minnesota community supervision agencies and tribal nations to ensure gender responsive, culture responsive, and trauma responsive services are implemented equally across all jurisdictions. And so we did add tribal nations as a result of feedback from this group that they should be recognized as well. There were no changes in definitions and procedures. We did a little bit of wordsmithing. And so in letter A, all agencies must establish initial, and that's the key part, initial gender, cultural, and trauma responsive training. Letter B outlines that ensure ongoing comprehensive skill practices. So for all staff, not just new staff, but all staff. So it's ongoing training, not just a one-time thing. And so those are some of the key changes to procedures. Feedback last time from CSAC was to maybe look at assigning hours to this training policy. As in, the procedures above shall be in addition to the 16-hour EVP training policy requirement. So I did bring that back to the group, the committee, and the consensus was we don't know what appropriate training looks like, and we don't know what appropriate training timeframes would be. We don't know if it's an hour makes the most sense, or 4 hours, 8 hours. And so we don't want to, we know that if this is going to be a mandatory requirement on all agencies to follow, funding is a key piece. So if we're going to say 8 hours and maybe evidence-based practice shows like 1 hour in each of these is appropriate, or maybe it is 8 hours, but we don't know that yet. So we want to give some time for this policy to be flexible for agencies to go and put their own timeframes in place, see what training is out there, and then come back, as this is going to be a living document. And maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, then we're going to have evidence-based practices of what makes the most sense for this deliverable. And so we did not do a assigned set of hours. So that was one of the, we did have a lengthy discussion on that. And I know there's like Amber or Carter are part of the EVP committee as well, if there's any feedback or any input you want to share on that as well. But those were the biggest changes. And I should say, I don't know if we want to talk about that or talk about my conversation with Toby or.
Sure, whatever you think's appropriate.
And so Toby and I did meet and we did go over the draft and we made some changes together. And I brought it back to the EVP committee, but there wasn't enough time to have a further discussion on it. And so right now, as the chair of the EVP Statewide Advisory Committee, I'm only presenting on what was voted on and approved by the committee. But I should say that there is another draft out there that Toby and I met. And so I'm not speaking on behalf of the EVP committee when I say we created made some changes to this, and I will turn it over to Toby to present on her feedback or her comments on that or on both drafts.
Toby, do you have some feedback that you'd like to offer? You are muted right now.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Am I there?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, sorry I had difficulty signing in, but I really liked the meeting that I had with him. And if we need to wait for it to go back to his committee, there was some more language that I had added. And I believe that that document was sent to you folks as well. And I kind of prefer that version. I think there's, like I said last meeting, there's a reason for me being a part of this committee and ensuring that tribally inclusive language is, added to policy. I hope that's, something that we achieve, through MIAC and being a participant on the board. So, where we go, if we wait for this to go back to that other board, and I've been invited to go to that, I'm just waiting for information on that. And myself and my probation officer are going to attend that.
Thank you, Toby. So I don't think this group has seen that version of the policy, correct?
Oh, I thought it came to me from Dawn.
I think
Yeah, I had.
Did we get it?
No.
I don't think so.
Don't remember seeing it
Kevin?
either.
Kevin, did you just send it to me?
I sent to you if you wanted to talk about it. And I have a copy here and I could talk about the changes that we had made on it if you want.
Sure.
All right, so after Toby and I met, or during our meeting, actually, I was making changes to the draft. So one of the changes is in the title. So gender, culturally, tribally inclusive, and trauma responsive training. And definitions, letter B, and cultural, cross off context, background, and their relationship with their tribal communities. Cultural responsive in the definition, last line would, including tribal affiliations would be the last, that would be after community. So it read values, diversity, respects differences, and develops services that meet the specific needs of each individual and community, including tribal affiliations. In procedures, letter A, all agencies must establish initial gender, culturally highlighted tribal affiliation response and trauma responsive training. And I believe those were the only changes.
All right. So I guess the question would be, how do you want to proceed? Because this hasn't not the version of the different
I'd be willing to meet with Kevin's group and speak to it with them and come back to this committee. Unless you want to approve it today.
I think I would, if we're off that topic and onto the next one with the same policy, I would have more to, if the druthers were to go back to the EBP advisory committee, I think I would have some more
input.
I agree.
Mhm.
I have some as well, if that's what we're gonna do.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and talk about all of the input, but before we leave that, I wanted to, on this topic, if we go back up to the purpose language, I'm not sure that tribal nations are in that language correctly. It says established foundational training for Minnesota community supervision agencies and tribal nations. I don't think we can pass a policy that requires tribal nations to engage in training. And this is really about us wanting education for agents about tribal nations and their culture and practices so that we as agents, the agents are working with individuals from tribal nations appropriately. So I think we would take it out of take that phrase out of purpose, but then work on those other additions that you brought forward. Does that make sense, Toby?
Yes, it does, but at the same time, I do think that leaving it there leaves the door open. I'd have to think about that one, but
Okay,
yeah.
I'll
But I
put it out
think,
as a
it
suggestion.
being there because it gives them that opportunity. The more and more the communities are going to, are more involved in services that, let me think about that one, but definitely, I'll go to Kevin's committee and then come back, once they've seen it.
Or you could, another suggestion might be to focus it specifically on tribal supervision up there, because I know that there are, many tribal nations that are engaging in supervision practices now. So it could be if you target it more towards that group.
Yeah, versus nations.
Yeah.
Okay.
A couple of things to note. So starting in January, I will no longer be the chair as the EBP chair rotates. And so Corey, who's observing today, he'll be taking over in January as the EBP chair. And I think the next meeting, the large committee meeting, is February, I believe. So I don't know. I know CSAC will meet again in January. I don't know if that's too much of a gap to have a conversation on this. But I would defer to Corey, since he'll be chairing that, if they can maybe do a more emergency meeting or with I know that there is a small subcommittee that's actually working on this deliverable as well. So I will defer to Corey since I'm no longer going to be the chair starting in January.
Okay. All right. So we'll figure out timing as we go. Sounds good. All right. Anything else on this particular topic before I open it up for broader feedback on this policy?
Mr. Chair, this is Ron. I'd like a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
As I understand it, that each agency will be tasked with developing their own curriculum basically for this training, which opens the door for multiple different ways of going through this. This group was tasked to standardize as much as we can. And I understand this is a very new program and new training type things, but should there not be some type of goal to have to develop a standard training at some point?
Yeah, I think that's I do think that there might be a number of folks here who have a similar question. So what do folks say to that?
I think that I agree, Ron. I think that the way it sits right now with procedures and the ABC underneath there, the idea, I can see us moving forward in one of three ways, right? And so right now, the proposal is to move forward with a very, very open, not very tight policy as far as I'm concerned. The idea is that we haven't agreed upon parameters or specific trainings, and I think felt as though we didn't have time to be able to vet that out. You could make the argument, I think the argument's been made, that perhaps we look at this in a year or two after agencies have explored different trainings, or maybe establish something more comprehensive, and then come back and say, okay, what's the best one? I think the concern there is our agencies may have put a lot of investment or established something and be a little bit more entrenched in what it is they wish to do. I don't know if that's the case. Another way forward might be so we could just move forward with the way it is, right? Another way forward is to make this procedures a little bit more specific. We wouldn't necessarily have to have number of hours. We could create parameters that don't have the number of hours, but have maybe attributes. That's going to take some time, even without the benefit of knowing what all the trainings and practices might be out there. but that's one way forward. We could go back and say, all right, let's create some more guardrails around these, or maybe some guidance around this. And that's going to take some time. What will take even more time is that we take this back and say, no, we're not going to pass this policy until we've agreed upon a little bit more concrete examples or specific trainings or whatnot, which is going to take considerable vetting and might take a great deal more time. I just think the second or third option are probably better than passing a policy that is pretty open. And again, I understand the reason why we would move forward with it the way it is. But I think when we brought it back to the Department of Corrections and discussed it more, we were more on the lines of let's get it dialed in a little bit more and add more direction than what is on here right now.
Board with it, don't get me wrong, I just think somewhere along the line, there should have been some type of statement that the ultimate goal was at some point reviewing everybody's. You're gonna have some agencies get really in depth with this, and you're gonna have others that are going to not, and maybe that should be falling somewhere in the middle. But I just think there should have been a statement saying that, you know, with the ultimate goal to review it within 1 year, 2 years, to see if there could be some standardization happening. Otherwise, that I'm on board with the way you're going about it, because it's such a new thing. So, but I was just a comment I wanted to make for the group.
No, I think you're right on. I think a lot of us are considering that.
Thank you. Thanks, Ron. Cami, and we'll just open it up generally and to any feedback that folks have at this point.
I just had a question. At one point, did we talk about at least the initial training potentially being able to be done at Statewide Academy? Is that something that we talked about? And was that decided that there's not enough space there, or is that still something that we're thinking about? So there's just a question. And then with response to Ron, under internal control, I think that maybe we can address some of that there. They'll have to report this in their comprehensive assessment. So the review team for the comp assessments might be able to get a good idea of where people are across the state, and then sort of readdress after that to determine if we are all over the place and need to get more on the same page. But it would be in the comp plan, which is a good way to be able to see who's doing what.
So I'm going to take the first question, Cami, regarding Statewide Training Academy. So just for CSAC's knowledge, Statewide Training Academy has been in existence for a while. It is the method that many agencies use to train their do initial training for new agents, and then some other agencies do their own training all in-house. It's been a little not as professionalized in terms of the development of the content and how that works over time. But we are sort of now at a point where we really have to take a look at that process too. So the chairs are actually going to the January meeting of that group to talk to them about what CSAC's needs are, and to set an expectation that training aligns with policy. And then we're going to ask them to come here and talk about that process so that we can kind of make that connection and get on the same page about what sorts of training should be in STA and what should not be in, and how that process should work. So that's going to be an evolving thing over the next couple of months, I would say. But we all recognize the need to align that training with these policies. So every layer that we do makes us more professional and makes everything work together better. So I would say right now the answer is we don't quite know, but soon I hope that we will get that process sort of more routinized. So that's one piece. And then I forgot what she said for the second one.
Talking about the comp plan being a place where we can.
Oh, and then the comp plan. So what I would say is, yes, that's a possibility. The one thing that I would caution this CSAC about is, like, we can't rely on the comp plan to be the be all end all of all things. So as we go for policies, like, I really want this group to continually be thinking about, like, what is the way to know if we're in compliance. I think that we have a group going now. So again, like, everything is in development. We have so many planes that we're building while we're flying. But for the comp plans, we also have another group that's working right now to sort of develop what does the future of comp plans look like. And I do think that it will be aligned towards having people report on progress towards compliance with policies or how they're doing under these policies. But it won't, that'll be an evolving thing as well. So we should always be thinking about what is the way to know that there is alignment with the policies that we're asking for. Other feedback on this one. Molly.
Carter, thank you for your comments. I agree wholeheartedly on kind of, which kind of direction and approach are we going to take given what you said. I think that when you go back to the group, Kevin, like, even in I guess whatever we end up kind of deciding as what, we're just going to start off with this kind of very, very open thing and just see kind of what happens and what people do, but you need to do something right in this area. And that's just our starting place, which is great. I mean, it's a starting place. I would argue that our purpose statement needs to change slightly though, because it really talks about establishing foundational training for all of us. And that is different than just letting us kind of choose what we're going to do. So I don't know if it's more about like providing guidance to do it, or, just kind of looking at some of the semantics and what it's really stating. It also says that it will be gender responsive, culturally responsive, and then trauma responsive services. And services to me could be like community services, or is it really like later on in the policy, we talk about our interventions with people like on supervision, like one-to-one, like the PO. So again, just wanting to make sure that it's clear, I guess, what exactly, we're using. Again, I think it's just a semantics thing. I think we kind of know what we're intending here. So that was just a couple of things. And then the other thing that I'd like to see discussed a little bit more maybe is that this is in addition to the 16-hour EBP training requirement. If it's really the two things on there, if we're really talking about the initial training, and that's just like we do initial MI, motivational interviewing training or assessment training, that's not part of ongoing 16 hours, right? That would almost be maybe, does that fit into the training policy that's already been approved on, like, within that first year of employment, you're getting this as well as like all these other things. And then B though talks about ongoing skill practice. And I think ongoing skill practice would be in alignment with 16 hours of ongoing EBP, at least it is in other skill practice, like refreshers and booster sessions. So just trying to differentiate maybe like, is what exactly when you say above and beyond, is it all of it? I think you're going to have jurisdictions maybe having a hard time getting to 16 hours plus, and I'm referring now to B, not just your initial training, so are we really saying you're going to end up with more than that 16? So again, just kind of being able to delineate that a little bit more.
And then next I'll ask Toby and then Kurt to make comments, and then Barb. Toby, Kurt, then Barb. Toby, you're on mute. Did you have comments? Yeah, there you go.
I'm good at that. I'm good at muting it. I hate WebEx, by the way.
Same.
I really appreciate all of the items that have been spoken about to date. And I think about, I don't really have the knowledge of what the training has been, done so far for officers. And I'd like to get that information if I could. And I think I shared this with the group before, and I'm not sure if this committee has suggested the use of other state agencies to help with the tribal relations training. But the state, Minnesota's Tribal State Relations Training is for all state employees. It is not just administration, it is for everybody. And we work with that, with them. We host that training, as do the other tribal nations. And so we travel throughout the 11 nations to provide that. And that's a general and broad training on the history of Native people, different legislations. They talk about, we do presentations on our local government, and tribal leaders would talk about their communities at that training. But I really do think if we could link to them somehow and have it, have them create a specific program just related to correction workers. So right now, when they attend these sessions, it's from every department. We get a mixed group, and I actually pulled my last training package here that we hosted out and, looked at the things that we did. But personally, I would like to get some information on what is the training? What do they do? And do they do them on their own? And somebody mentioned the statewide academy. If I could get information on that, that would also help me to think about a little bit more on how, everything could be addressed, not just tribal relations, but the other pieces that we're covering under this. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Toby. We can get you information about the statewide training academy for sure. Kurt.
Just to comment on the definition of culturally responsive, the last part of that definition provides the clause meets the specific needs of each individual and community. And that strikes me as casting a pretty wide net. And in terms of inclusivity, it's pretty broad. And it seems like then all of a sudden we're narrowing a grouping, which is a little, to me, would be included in that broader language. But I raise that only for discussion.
Okay. Kevin's taking that down.
That seems like a good call out. I don't think we
Yeah.
can actually meet the
Think about
needs of
that.
every specific individual. Yeah, so kind of figuring out the semantics around that to get to the kind of spirit of what that is without it being as prescriptive as it sounds. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Barb.
Thank you. Just a few overall comments about Kevin and Carter and Molly's comments. I really appreciate the work to try and find that balance, wouldn't it be easier to just say, yep, 2 hours on this, 2 hours on this, 2 hours on this? It would be easier, but I think especially in this area where, at least in a lot of my world, if we're really doing a good job, that gender, cultural, and trauma sensitive training is embedded everywhere, and it's probably better when it's embedded. So I think that's the future that we're going towards. So I appreciate not calling it out like a check the box here. So I just hope that when we get to our next phase of this, that we'll continue with some of that flexibility, because that would be the easy way out, is ending up that then our agents are half the time in training, which doesn't work for anybody either, and checking boxes, because this training especially, and even what Toby's talking about, should be part of all our training. It should be part of our daily work. So I just want to say thank you and continue to, I don't have the magic words, but encourage you to help us get to that path versus a check the box path.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Marlon.
Just I guess a clarification question as related to the tribal nation issues. Are we talking about agents that are working with members of tribal nations, or are we talking about agents that are members of tribal nations that need training? Because it kind of goes back to when we the first part, that first paragraph, or the both.
I think that we're mostly talking about agents that are working with clients who are members of tribal nations. But the twist to that is there are some tribal nations who are starting to also provide supervision services to the statewide population. There are also some tribal nations like Boys Fort that have their own tribal officers that serve their own clientele from their courts. So it's very complex. I think that the scope of this policy, though, can probably only be aimed at the state population, the folks that are being agents who are supervising people that are members of tribal nations. Just because I'm just thinking about separation of powers. Like, we don't have the ability to tell a tribal nation to do anything. That's just, you're right. That's not appropriate. So that's why I'm trying to like walk that line of like, we want to make sure that agents who are working with members of tribal nations understand their culture and understand how to work with those individuals. They may be also from a tribal nation themselves, right? But this policy is aimed at the supervision services that agencies that are supervising people under state courts really.
And at the same time, making any trainings available to.
Exactly. Yeah. Certainly they can participate in those in trainings that we make available more broadly. Yeah.
And for clarification too, and this is one of the things that Toby and I had talked about, was this should be for all Minnesota agencies, not just ones that incorporate counties that have a tribal nation in their county, because you could have somebody that's an enrolled member somewhere, but they move to a county where they don't have a tribal nation. And so there's supervision across the state where this is going to take place and impact.
Correct. Yeah, like Hennepin and Ramsey have high Native American populations within their clientele. So we want to make sure, no matter where you are, that the agents are getting trained in these processes.
Thanks for that.
No, I'm glad that you helped us define that further.
Remind us.
Yeah. All right, any other feedback on this policy? Toby.
I just wanted to find out if we had a quorum, because I do have to leave this discussion. We have the commissioner from DCYF here this morning, and I need to leave to meet her. And I appreciate all the comments made, and I hope we can put something together. To me, it's like it is a statewide training need, and understanding that our people are all over the state, and if I can say, like, they need help to come home. And how can somebody help them to come home if they don't know about what that home has for them when they return, what opportunities and what some of the setbacks that might be there? How can you work without knowing, the communities that they're returning to? And, what we want our people to come back, and we are putting, things in place, housing, other rehabilitation services with addictions, family relationships, reuniting families. And there are some of the communities that have great things going on where they have like welcoming ceremonies for them. We have people, when I went to visit some of the programs while they're still incarcerated, I talked to some of them and they go, well, when I get out of here, the first thing I want to do is build a sweat lodge. I gotta know, is there a sweat lodge in Grand Portage? Yes, there is. Is there one in Red Lake? I don't know, but they should know what they're going to be tied to, especially when they're leaving an institution that has provided internal programming for the incarcerated people. So I just wanted to share that, but if you don't mind, I have to leave. Do we have a quorum if I leave?
We do, and
Everybody's
thank you so
nodding?
much.
Okay.
Thanks so much for taking the time to be here today. It was really important discussion, so I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I did read everything and I thought there were, everything was positive that I read with the changes and the other things. So I'll see you folks. Have a nice holidays.
You too. Thank you. All right. So I think we're asking EVP to take one more run this policy to work in those concepts that you worked with Toby on, and to think about honing in on the approach, right? Like figuring out that balance a little bit more. Was there any more feedback from anyone before we?
I have one comment.
Cammy.
As I'm kind of listening, I just want to be really careful that we're sensitive to the fact that this is gender, culturally, and trauma responsive, all encompassing, and hope that we don't focus too much on one culture because it's all cultures. And so I just want to be very careful that we're not emphasizing one culture, which may diminish another culture or the gender or the trauma. Just making sure that all of those things maintain in this policy as important.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, sounds good. Okay, so we'll ask you to take it back and do another round. One thing I do want to say timeline wise is I think that will mean this won't make it in the first set of policies that go through for approval at DOC. But we can, once we have a timeline, we can get it in the queue for that. So it doesn't mean it can't happen this year. It just means it might be a little bit later this year.
So just for clarification, asking for the group, CSAC like a presentation in January or February after the large group meets? And I would say probably February would make the most sense.
Yeah,
If you
I
want a
think so.
more worked on draft, better recommendations, but I would defer to Corey.
Yep, I think that makes more sense.
I guess I have a question as far as differentiating what it is that we're asking the EVP Advisory Committee to do. So I think that we're moving away from broad language and to more specific. But does that mean, and maybe this is for me because I'm on that committee, right? And so does that mean it's this particular training, like this training is in, this training is out? Or does it mean there's certain attributes of a training, or maybe hours or more specifics or guidelines?
I think you guys are going to have to figure that
Okay.
out.
All right.
But that's more specific than the just do a training.
Yep, for
So
sure.
that's still, I think we're looking to you all for a recommendation there on what's achievable in this first year. And Ron Anthony had the feedback earlier about potential for review down the road too. So maybe take that feedback as well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it. I mean, I know that this is hard, but we are getting there. So don't lose heart. We really are getting there. Okay, I think I'm going to turn it back to John for the risk assessment policy.
I think that's me.
And
Oh, Molly.
I'll pass it
Sorry,
to
Molly.
I'll invite Tessa to come on. Yes, so we are moving into the risk assessment, statewide risk and needs assessment policy. We did table that last meeting. There was a couple different versions of the draft policy that have been circulating. And so given that we wanted to make sure that this group had the correct one, we tabled it until today. We also then asked us representing some associations to go back and get feedback from those associations as well. But we have Tessa here to give us an update on the policy. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, so it was brought to the chair's attention that there were a couple versions going around, which actually, I just looked at, Corey had the paper version. And that still seems to be in the original version that was submitted in October. So the changes that have come back from CCA and CPO have not actually been reviewed by the large group or the tri-chair, the chairs. So we met last week and we're scheduled to review them. But we had a presentation that ended up taking up our entire time. So Zach Hamilton came and presented to the group, which then left us to kind of need to gather information and meet again to digest all the information that was presented to us, and to see if that even affects the policy or if we move forward with the policy as it's written, and then review the changes. So currently, the most recent update is that we haven't had time to review that. I don't know if as the committee wants to look at the recommendations that came from CCA and CPO, or if you'd rather it be vetted through us as the tri-chairs in the committee as a whole first. If so, it's going to need to be tabled as well, probably until, I would assume, February, similar, because we won't meet again until January to review it, and then we'd be able to come back in February.
Okay, so, yeah, and I talked a little bit before this. We have a couple of routes. We could do that, is to, send that back to the subgroup if they have not, had a final, recommendations on this policy at this point. Since we are in the position where we've gone to our respective jurisdictions and are bringing back comments to this group, we could also walk through those and decide as a committee if we still feel like it needs more work from the subcommittee, or if we're comfortable to vote on it today, at least to get us started. And then again, we know that Dr. Hamilton's, and he's going to give us an update later as well, like whether it's cutoff scores or anything else, we may be coming back to this policy anyway. But this was just to, again, get us started with kind of the risk assessment, the case planning, and that training. And a QA policy that was approved as well. So I guess that's what I'm thinking. I don't know. I'm looking to my co-chairs as well.
Yeah, I'd rather see if we can work through this one today, because we will totally miss our window to get it enacted in February if we don't get it out the door today. So that's and this one is like foundational to practice. So I think if it's possible to get it through today, I'd rather try.
Okay. So I know, again, having talked, so Tessa, because it was consistent with, I know, Community Corrections Act feedback as well. If you wanted to share as the co-chair of that subcommittee, your few changes on here that you see as, again, not being the current version of what the edits were, we could start there.
Would you like, so I emailed the changes, the edits to Don. Would you like him to pull that up and then we can kind of, oh, look at that.
Perfect.
It's like he knew.
Do you want me to put it on that the left screen as well?
Yes.
So
I can do that.
because it looks like the policy you have here is the original one that was submitted in October. And so anything up here that is written in red is going to be the changes that were suggested either through CPO or CCA recommendations for changes. So if you go down, let's see, I think the first change really was adding the significant new information to the definition language.
Which definition?
It'll be towards the bottom. It was significant new information. It'll be red. Or blue. Blue. That's funny. It's red on mine. Interesting. Email changed the color. So this is adding a definition of significant new information. I think it's a pretty standard, and I believe it also matched. Someone said that it matched. Is there that language in the case plan one?
No, this is what it was, a recommendation from MAC too. So I guess I'm just gonna, like, when I see something that echoes what was brought forth. So that was also a definition that, well, actually, I think that came from this group, from CSAC originally. What does that mean? And then it was like, let's get some definition to this. MACAC would actually add to the end of that sentence, which is presumed to warrant an updated assessment that could alter the supervision level. Like you don't have to do one because something major changes. It's really that we think that by doing one, it would change the way that we supervise more or less. And so wanted that additional statement at the end of that definition.
So can you read?
Yep, yeah, repeat it. So it'd stay exactly as it is, and then I'm not an English major, this comma, which is presumed to warrant an updated assessment that could alter the supervision level.
I like that a lot because I think otherwise you just have those couple examples there and there's 400 other things that could happen and you're like, I do like that addition a lot.
I missed something. I think the other suggestion, sorry, was to take out loss of employment and just keep it at the end of commission of a new crime. Because loss of employment, although yes, it could change. And again, you could still do it for that, but if you keep it in there, there's a lot of people that change jobs a lot or lose. I mean, you can't be doing an assessment every time perhaps somebody loses a job. So I think that if it just stayed with commission of a new crime, you know, and then this other statement, then I think for any of those reasons, you still could do one, but it's not suggesting you have to do one.
I agree with that. I looked at that and said at least change it to long-term or something, but.
Hey, Don, do you, by any chance have the ability to make edits while we're going?
I can.
I know you have a lot over there.
So,
I can send you the
where
link.
would you like to do that? Right after loss of
So you would cross out loss of employment, is et cetera.
take that out.
Yep.
Yep. And then you do comma at the end. Oops, nope. Are we keeping et cetera?
It's up to you if you want to keep et cetera.
You want it right
But
after
that-
new crime?
At the very, oh yeah, so cross out et cetera too. Cross out et cetera, then do then it's comma, which is presumed to warrant an updated assessment that could alter the supervision level.
That could alter what?
The supervision level.
So I think that needs to be wordsmithed a little bit more because that grammatically doesn't make a lot of sense. So this comment initially came from one of our CSAC meetings suggesting that we define what significant new information means so that all agencies sort of understood when a reassessment needs to be done. But I'm wondering if we don't have a new crime in there, if it's just a major change in client status, which is presumed to warrant an updated assessment. It seems kind of odd to have just one example. I would maybe suggest taking out everything other than a major change in client status, which is presumed to warrant an updated assessment, et cetera, et cetera.
I would also mirror that, mainly because you also can do significant new information can reduce the risk. So it doesn't have to necessarily be an increase. It can also be a decrease. So if you change that language, it kind of removes the, like, it has to be something
Bad
to
or, like,
increase.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it more general.
You'd like to delete the highlighted? Well,
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Before we go further down, did you say something earlier though that we needed adult up at the top?
Oh, yes.
Did you say more about that?
Yes, so when reviewing this, it dawned on me that I was not, I was like, what about juveniles? We don't have that anywhere in this assessment. And so then I think I spoke with Kelly and Carter and I was, to clarify if the intention was to have a separate whole juvenile policy for all juveniles. So my suggestion would be to add adults so that this is clear that this is,
The title.
yes, that this policy is for adults.
Where did you want that?
Oh, that's a
Put
great
adult right
question.
before statewide.
Yeah, just adult statewide risk, and then we can have a juvenile one later, yeah.
And then in applicability, just put this policy applies to adult clients. Yeah, right. So right after staff in,
Right down here.
yep. You could write something like this policy applies to adult clients.
Applies to,
Adult clients.
sorry, Carl, what was the last?
Clients.
Clients, thank you.
And that should be its own sentence.
While we're on applicability, one of the other notes was to update the applicability and the definitions just to align with some of the other policies. So some of the other policies say Minnesota community supervision agencies. Some have just added tribal behind that. So under applicability, that's one of the suggested changes is, do we go Minnesota community supervision agencies or the three that are there and then adding tribal?
I will take that note and get direction from our policy team on the best way to do that piece.
Okay. Do you want to highlight that, Dawn, so then we know to review that?
This here.
Yes.
All right, so next, Tessa, on your list there.
Okay, let's. So the next one is under policy. And it says, this policy applies to post convictions. One of the recommendations, and I'm not sure if it came from CCA or CPO, I'm not sure who it came from. The request was to have it changed to sentence. That's in purple. That's really interesting. I don't know. It's red or blue on mine. I would think that's a talking piece because some people do the PSI, or excuse me, the assessment with the PSI process. And if that language, I would think you would want the earliest it could be, not the latest. So I would think the conviction, but again, this was not reviewed as a committee, so I'm speaking
From Tessa?
from Tessa.
I can tell you from MACIC, the reason was it doesn't, this policy is for those, again, post-sentence on supervision in terms of like you must do one. It doesn't preclude you from doing them as an agency if you choose to do them as part of your PSI. But then there are others that philosophically don't think you should do them or don't do them. And so I think that needs to be a county choice or, kind of like in that realm. It doesn't say you can't do them at PSI, but I don't think we're saying you want to mandate the state to do them at PSI. So hence the post sentence versus, backing that up a little bit.
Not to split hairs here, but does it then require that you do it between conviction and sentence?
Right.
If you put it the other way, what is it? I don't know why it really matters. I mean, I would elect to stay with conviction. It doesn't require that you do it.
Okay.
before
But
sentence, right?
technically, if someone's on a stay of adjudication or a stay of imposition while they're on supervision, right, it's different than a conviction, correct? So. I mean,
Stay of
to me,
adjudication
sentence
is,
makes
yeah.
sense.
That's a good point.
So then it would, post sentence in that sense would make more sense. Yeah.
That was, and I know we had that discussion at the table, and that's why I think we talked about changing it to sentence because of that. I mean, would there be other post-conviction pre-sentence cases that this policy maybe we're not in spirit aren't speaking to, but the policy may direct towards them?
But I think what Marlon's saying is an argument for post conviction,
Conviction.
right? Not sentence.
Because state of adjudication, you would want.
Those would, but what about a Rule
post-conviction
2705 then? Or any diversionary programs, because this doesn't specifically speak to adult diversionary programs. But if we put post-conviction, we would have to follow the policy for adult diversionary programs as well. Is that our intent?
But you're not convicted if you're sent to diversion, right?
Oh, that's, yep, never mind. I'm thinking arrest. So
Yeah.
post-conviction would be right, yeah.
Because then the next
You're right,
sentence
Carter, yeah.
says individuals ordered to.
So we must have
community
changed it already
supervision.
then. To what originally was. That makes sense.
I like conviction.
Yeah,
I think
that makes
sentence
sense. I
makes-
guess.
Are we okay with conviction or can we stick with conviction?
Tammy, did you have any other notes on that? We don't have this. It's just an encouraged change from MACAC. Do you have any other points that? One way or the other?
I
on
don't
this
have
one?
any other points. I think that was what's been said was sort of the sentiment around that is that post sentence seemed like it made more sense and didn't dictate that people would be required to do them pre-sentence in any fashion. But I don't think it's a hill anybody's needs to die on.
So we keep it post-conviction because we're trying to differentiate between pre-conviction supervision and after conviction supervision. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to clarify that, so we're not gonna be mandated to do them on state adjudication.
Right.
Say more about that.
Question.
Say more about that
Yeah.
question. I want to make sure I
So
understand.
if we just have a post conviction, so anybody that's sentenced to a state of adjudication, we would not be required to do a PSI or a risk assessment on, which I mean, are we, if we're counting those individuals on the funding formula, I think we probably should include them in this.
Say post plea.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I think, I don't know any agencies that is not doing it on a state adjudication felony. So to me, I don't think it'd be, to me, it makes more sense to keep it to Marlon's point, to have that.
It's really good
Post
to bring that
sentence.
up though, because that is, you're absolutely correct.
I mean, I could see somebody taking legal action at some point, challenging them 2 words of somebody that's on a state of adjudication and you're trying to make me do what? This applies to a conviction. I'm not convicted. I don't know, but to me, switching it to sentence just kind of clears all that up. It's after, if you're sentenced to a state of adjudication, you know, then you have to require, these are your requirements to follow. I don't know.
But aren't they not sentenced?
That's
They're
what I was gonna
convicted?
ask Kurt,
They're
if
not
you could,
convicted yet.
if a person's on a stay of adjudication, have they been sentenced?
They've been sentenced, just not convicted.
In my definition, they would be, I mean, a conviction is when a plea is accepted. And,
That's what
correct? I mean, as
that's
early as
my,
an acceptance of a plea before sentencing.
So a state of adjudication would be included within that. Because you take a plea on a state of adjudication.
Not always, right?
Not always, yeah.
It's, you complete X, Y, and Z, it gets sometimes dropped altogether or sometimes to a lesser, I don't know.
Does it clear it up more or make it more muddy if we just said this policy applies to individuals ordered to community supervision,
oh,
etc.?
I was wondering the same thing.
There you
That makes
go.
great sense.
That is.
Love it.
For these,
Love it.
for these
Love it.
levels, yeah, that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. Terrific.
Thanks, Cammy.
Thanks, Cammy.
Yeah.
Okay, so, so then Don, if you could just take out post. If you could cross out post and take out sentence.
All right, Tessa.
Not to muddy that waters, but wouldn't somebody on a adult diversionary program be sentenced to, they wouldn't be sentenced though. But the judge in our county signs a sentencing order on our Rule 2705s because she believes she has to. So we now have a sentencing order on a diversionary program. Yep, she believes she has to. Would that apply? Maybe we're an anomaly to that case, and we could be. It's not very often that it happens, but
I think you could probably explain that in your compass. I mean, if that's like a one-off.
yeah,
I've never-
it might be. So, okay, yep. So if it doesn't affect anybody else, it's a non-issue. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so the next part, although it does look like I missed a section, I'm sorry, if you go up, there's some formatting font issues, something is not supposed to be italic.
Don't worry about that stuff.
Okay,
We'll
okay,
figure it out.
all right, okay. So, sorry, then going back down, under B1. I don't know what color it is up there, okay. This is very entertaining to me, I don't know why. So it looks like, and again, I don't know who this recommendation came in from, I don't know if it was CCA or CPO. It says agencies will publish pre-screener assessment standard to determine when a comprehensive LSCMI assessment is needed. This is looking at identifying the target population. Pre-screener assessment.
So I don't think this sentence is necessary because it actually, this concept is further down in the section where we're talking about pre-screeners. So it's down. Yeah, so in D2, when using a pre-screeners, agencies must conduct the LSCMI on cases where a pre-screener indicates the need for a full assessment. I think that's the policy, and I don't know that we need this up here.
Well, and maybe I missed it somewhere in here. I think this speaks to it if I remember the conversation on this. When the word used publish pre-screener pretty much means when the state has an agreed upon pre-screener that kind of directs us to the published pre-screener. If we look at the pre-screener section under this, it just says agencies must conduct a pre-screener. So they can use any pre-screener even after the state, we have one that we approve. So I think that's why that language, correct me if wrong, was included. I think it was in the CCA discussion.
CCA, I think, yeah.
And it was adding the word, the language publish, because the D doesn't speak to using the state approved pre-screener when we have one approved.
Or the authors. So
Right,
again,
for
if
the
you-
authors.
like, so for the one for the LSCMI, you'd use the cut points on the published pre-screener. So what do they say? It needs a full LSCMI versus you just say what you want as a jurisdiction, essentially. Yes, that's exactly why. Or if you have, like, I think kind of been has their own that they validated, so whatever those cut points are. So that's why it was kind of published piece, yeah.
But again, I think that goes down in D2.
Like add it to D2 instead?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Oh,
fine.
that makes sense.
I thought you meant, yeah.
Move it to D2.
I don't think this
Oh,
is the place to
yep.
do it.
Oh, I
Makes
see.
sense.
The note.
I meant
So
it was already included in
That's
D2.
fine.
yeah, that's all I'm saying is like
Got it.
we're saying that, and if you want to add the word published down there, that's
Yep.
fine, but I don't think
That makes
this
sense.
is the right place for it.
Okay.
And if we could cross that one out just for there, and then we'll remember that word published when we get down to D2.
Yes.
All the blue.
The whole sentence.
The entire blue, got it.
Yeah.
And then the next blue section was added, and it says all relevant data for the primary tool is entered into statewide supervision system or assessment management tool in CSTS.
That change also came from the CSAC meeting where there were some questions about the fact that we have the ability to use that integration and sort of pushing agencies to actually do the integration in CSTS for assessments.
So is that talking about, tracking the score or tracking having the tool integrated into the system? So for example, and I'm saying DRA. So I know the state has a system in which the assessment tool is done. And then you can merge it into CSTS, the data pulls in. But I believe most agencies are still paper penning DRA information.
So this would
So is-
require, that's what we are, and MACX supports this, that we would want to have those entered into like statewide, again, if it switches and there's just CSTS or whatever it ends up being, but that it needs to be somewhere in either of those databases.
So is that saying the tool itself or the score?
I would actually throw that question back to you because they're mirroring C, the last bullet of C, where the committee did say or require all relevant data for the trailer tool is entered into the assessment management tool. So what were you thinking for that?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think we talked. I don't recall a specific discussion about that, but I would assume it has to be just the score. My assumption is because the trailer tools are all done differently. Some of them are paper pen, some, DVI you can do, but that doesn't merge into CSTS. Those are all manually entered scores.
So I think keeping it vague enough, because you're right, like there's some things that are copyrighted that we just can't add,
Correct.
like how to score it right into CSTS, right? We would have to be paying whoever we purchase that trailer tool from and entering just the score in. So I think not being too prescriptive, but like, so relevant data is whatever you can. I think ideally we would all, if we have the ability and it's not going to violate a copyright, we would build it into into the assessment module. And when we can't, we're going to have to do the score. So I think just keeping it open makes sense to me.
Okay.
Okay.
But for the LSCMI, that could stay because the LSCMI is already in there.
Right.
When you go down to C, that would be where the change would be.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And then, sorry, did you have something, Molly?
Nope. No.
And then the next one, under C, this was also added. Note agencies may contribute to the creation of new trailer tools and use new tools for the purpose of validating them with 2 studies.
This gets into agencies wanting to engage in promising practices. So if generation tools come out, we want to be part of the group that participates in that study, and so want to make sure that we're keeping it open for that
Innovation. Yeah, makes sense. And then, are we ready?
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. And then the next one under D, number 4, the recommendation was at minimum reassessment must occur annually for, and then it's striked out medium and high risk clients and changed to engaged in case planning and or when significant new information arises. So removing that all medium and high risk clients get reassessment, and change the recommendation is that it's engage in the case planning, those who are engaged in the case planning process. Or if significant information arises.
Yep. And again, I think that discussion came from the CSAC meeting too, to align a little bit more with the case planning policy.
You're not necessarily always doing reassessments for the purposes of only case planning, right? Listen, I love the idea that it tracks with case planning, but you're also doing reassessments for other purposes. You might be doing a reassessment that might end up in this person does need to start case planning, for example. I'm just wondering if you're missing a group of people that if you're not case planning with them now, or if they're, for example, moderate risk, that if you're not reassessing annually, that they're going to miss the opportunity, for example, to reduce their risk, or that they may need more intervention, for example. But I do like the idea that I like the thought, but I think that
And
should stay.
the significant new information doesn't take into account those folks.
Not necessarily, no. It'd be pretty incremental.
So I do hear what you're saying, Carter. I'm just trying to like walk through. So it does, but again, it doesn't preclude an agency from doing them whenever their standards.
Sure.
So this is setting the must for the state to do. All these other circumstances, which, like you said, I think a lot of them will show up when significant new information arises. For instance, when you just use that example of they're low risk, so they're in, for a lot of us, if they're in our kind of administrative or lower monitoring, and something does happen, that would meet this with new significant information, we do a reassessment and maybe move them to a medium or high, right? Because that new assessment would be done. I just want to be careful. I don't think we can write a policy to all of the other.
I don't think so either, but I think there's the assessments can and should be done for a reason, but the main reason is case planning. So I'm not arguing there.
Did you have a different word or a different?
I would just bring back the original language. Is what the words I would bring back.
Oh, I know the medium, adding medium, because it's not required in case planning is definitely, MACAC would not support that. So we were trying to figure out, that's where I think, again, I think we're open to some other language, like the clients engaged in case planning means for your agency, if you are able to do medium and high risk, because that's highly encouraged, right? That you do, but in terms of must, we are saying that then it's either high risk, then it matches that language, or we keep it like with this language.
I think the other suggestion here during the CSAC meeting was instead of engaged in case planning, that it occur annually for high to very high clients, because that is what the case planning policy said. So that was another suggestion at one point.
I understand where you're going with it. I think you're going to miss some mobility there too if you're not going to reassess with at least media. I'm not, and your point was with, for example, low risk, and I wouldn't necessarily add that back. So I have one more change on this line too that kind of picked up too.
I think another wordsmithing here too is at the very beginning, at minimum. So if we're looking at changing and adding more, then at minimum, maybe no, but if we're saying more at minimum, this is what's required of everybody, then the wordsmithing needs to change to the at minimum piece. So maybe that's the first decision that needs to be made.
I was having a tough time hearing, Kimmy.
Yeah, you cut out. I couldn't
Sorry.
hear what you were saying.
I said, I think maybe the key, now I'm going to yell and blow y'all away. I think maybe the key wording on D4 is the very first two words, at minimum. So is at minimum the basic, essential, everybody has to do this, where the engaged in case planning or the high to very high makes sense? Or are we opening it up for more, and then that at minimum needs to come out of there? I think that's the first decision. Is this at minimum, or is it all reassessments?
Now that you mention it, I think the at minimum is redundant because this policy does point out what the minimum standards are, right? So I don't know that you need to have at minimum in there. Either way, right? Could be every paragraph. Right, yeah, exactly.
True. Does this include transfers, or would the transfer policy speak to that they need to be reassessed before they can be transferred?
I think the transfer
The
policy
transfer
would,
policy will speak to that?
I don't think this contradicts that.
Okay.
I think we can live with case planning.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing that we did talk about was when you read 1, 2, 3, and 4 under D, it says only LSCMI, but 4, we should probably include LSCMI and the DRA.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
It's not in there.
Agreed.
Because if I was to read that, which I am, it looks like you're talking about only the LSCMI because it's under that. So I would elect that it reads LSCMI, get rid of at minimum, reads LSCMI and DRA reassessments must occur annually for clients engaged in case planning and or when significant new information arises.
Okay, so you're asking, sorry, say that again, Carter. So Don, you're asking him first to take out at minimum,
Yep.
number 4.
Yep.
Thanks, Don.
And then right in there, LSCMI and DRA. There you go. And
Engage in case planning, okay?
Additionally, do you want to put a timeline on the, so the very first one, agencies must conduct a pre-screener and or LSCMI within 60 days of case assignment? Do you want a time frame around the DRA of the initial assessment?
Is 60 days a reasonable? I mean, I would say do them all within that 60 days and add DRA to that line too is but I don't do those.
The current DOC policy is 90 days.
Okay.
We do an assessment within 90 days.
Okay. So the question is, I guess on the table, do we want a second line that just addresses DRA at 90 days? Do you want to put DRA at 60 days or lengthen both of them out to 90 days?
well, if we lengthen them to 90 days, be consistent in other policies. For example, the ISR policy, there's a lot of other policies that say 60. So that seems to be, when I'm reading other policies, it's 60.
And 90 when you get into like a misdemeanor case is a chunk
Is
of
that right?
time, right? Too, so.
And the reason for the DRA at 90, most often there's already a DRA that was done at the time of sentencing along with the psychosexual. And then it's done by an agent in 90 days. And I'm not sure how other agencies, what their timelines are for the DRA.
And is there a recommendation from the authors on that?
That's a great question. And I don't know the answer to that, but I don't have my book.
That's all right. You come with your book like in your
The
bag.
huge DRA binder.
Yeah,
If
right.
anyone's seen it, it's like this big.
Well, for the sake of like this, how do people feel about adding a number, like underneath number 2? And, or adding onto the sentence if you want, whatever. It's just saying that you must conduct. There's not a pre-screener for that one, is there?
No, but we will be using the pre-screener
For the
for the
LSCMI,
LSCMI
correct.
determination.
So that you would add a sentence then that says, DRA assessments shall be completed within 90 days.
Reading the same way as the first one.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm not sure what other.
If we put it up there, then we can see it and play with it a little bit. So Don, if you don't mind doing like a number 2 or, underneath
A new number
a
2.
new number 2, thank you.
Is it number 2?
A new number 2.
A new number 2. We're taking out this number 2 here.
No, no,
No,
we're gonna have
Just
5 at
adding.
the end of the day instead of
Okay.
4.
It should be 1A.
so if you go up to case assessments at the end of number 1 and hit enter,
Got it.
and then it'll create a new number 2.
There you go.
There you go.
And then if you use the same language, agencies must conduct a DRA within 90 days of case assignment. Does that fit then with how you in practice?
90
Okay.
days of
Case assignment.
Case assignment.
Okay, discussion on that one or questions?
Tammy, were you gonna say something? Or did you have, no? Okay.
We also wanted to put the published piece in here, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So, where a published no, where would it go? Using number 3 now. When using a pre-screener, agencies must conduct the LCMI on cases where a pre-screener indicates the need for full assessment.
According to
There you go.
published standards?
Yeah, published standards. So after, yeah, full assessment down on that number 3.
After full assessment?
Yeah, according to published, did you say standards?
Yeah.
Published standards. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So is there more?
Let's look. I think the rest of, yeah, I think that was it.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Down.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, then I will move to
So
other.
I have, oh, other, good.
I was gonna move to
I have
others.
Other.
This was just from what I knew from the subcommittee. Yes, please, Kelly.
Okay, in that last section, F, tool validation and quality assurance. All right, so the way a couple of things are striking. Number one, some of our feedback is that we're requiring the DRA, but we're not requiring it to be validated in this section. So I think we have to fix that. But the other countervailing factor is if DOC cannot afford to validate every tool all the time right now. So I'm kind of wondering if we could do something along the lines of, like when CSG was here, you know, one of the things they talked about with validated is we're talking about a tool that has had some rigor placed to it. So validated, like while we want it to be validated on our population, first step is it has to have been validated, period, you know, that it works, right? So I'm wondering if maybe one could be something like all required assessment tools must be validated on general populations and should be validated on Minnesota's statewide population. So like if we did something to indicate it's got to be a validated tool that you use, best case scenario is we also validate it here. And then I'll just say the rest of my thought, and then if we want to put it up there, we can. And then for number 2, you know, we're saying DOC will coordinate revalidation. Some of these haven't been validated yet, right? So if maybe that could say something like DOC will coordinate the validation and revalidation on Minnesota's supervision population in collaboration with all statewide delivery systems as funding is available. And sorry to like give us an out, but like we don't always get the funding to do this stuff.
So I don't think anybody actually looks at the last page. So when that part of that policy was made, we were, I think, still at that time just talking about LSCMI and pre-screener as a standardized tool.
Yeah.
And so with the number 2 on that, that was, you're right, specifically with regard to the LSCMI and or screeners. So is it cleaner to add a number 4 there that just specifically talks about the DRA and making sure that it is validated, and not specifically adding that to the same spot that the LSCMI and the DOC pieces? So if we take what Kelly said about the DRA needing to have been validated, but we make that a number 4 under F, so it's separate. Because DOC doesn't want to validate the DRA, obviously.
No, I'm not saying that we don't want to. It's just that like I can't right now. Like I literally all my funding is tied up in the LSCMI validation and the workload study. I don't know if I'm going to get funding next biennium, right? Like so if you guys are looking to DOC to validate these tools and to always be the one that does, it has to be part of the funding stream, right? And we don't currently get funding for that. Like I'm using funding that I would use for all of community services and reentry. So my reentry side gets nothing to do these projects right now. So, you know, what I'm saying is like, we also have to be able to ask for funding and get a stream going in order to be able to consistently do this. And this is sort of our reality.
Yeah, I 100% agree, Kelly. And that's, you know, we never talked about the state validating anything other than the LSCMI. And then we added the DRA to this policy, which is why I was thinking adding it as its own separate number might make more sense.
Yeah, I mean, we can. So you're saying something along the lines of like, the DRA should be validated on Minnesota's supervision population when feasible or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, however you guys wanted to word that, just to note that, you know, the DRA is also required statewide and it should be a validated assessment. And I think you had some good wording there when you said it the first time, which I can't remember now, but just putting that as a number 4, that the DRA also should be made sure that it's validated.
Yeah, that's why I was like sort of saying, you know, suggesting potentially adding language to that first one that like every tool that's required should be validated, should be like generally validated, right? And then, and you know, and should be validated on Minnesota's population if feasible or something. I don't know. I'm just
I think
trying
if
to.
feasible is fine. It gets to the point of like in a perfect world, this is absolutely what, you know, should be happening. And we don't want to make, again, a mandate that's not funded, period, that no, you know, whether it's a state, for sure counties that would have to like, you know, do that as a must. So I think either if feasible or your first language makes sense to me.
So maybe I could ask Don to put it up there and then you guys could react to it so you can actually see it. So Don, on the first one, cross out pre-screener and LSCMI. Yep, and then put all required assessment before tools. Assessment. Yep. Must be validated, and then add should I say generally or on general population?
On general, I think.
This is the point where you're saying it should be a validated, like a good tool.
Right. Right.
What language do we have under the or the secondary assessments, like where we have the AUC language?
Oh,
Would that be helpful?
let me see.
The tool has been validated with an area under the curve. Like, would it be wise to be consistent maybe in that language? Would that be helpful?
Because what that draws upon is several different
Because we're,
validations, not
yes,
just a local validation.
because that's what we said is the trailer tool guideline. Should we look at using that as the general?
So the tool has been validated with an area under the curve AUC value of at least 0.64 via validation studies. Something like that.
We could do that. Is that getting you in the weeds?
I don't say it again. Sorry, all required.
So they're saying, so Don, if you go up to D1 or sorry, not D1, C, and the first bullet in C, C as in cat.
C. Sorry,
Mhm.
got it.
Validated with an area under the curve value of at least 0.64. Like taking that language and putting that in the main language.
Because maybe that even helps it speaks to even future, well, that'll help that area, I guess, the future tools that would meet that.
So we could say all required tools must be validated this way.
Okay.
And should be validated on Minnesota's population if feasible.
I think that, so we're setting the standard that they should meet that AUC.
So John, if you could grab with an area under the curve to the end of the sentence.
I should make sure the DRA meets
I was
that.
gonna say, I'd
I
imagine our
actually-
DRA does. If it doesn't, that
I know.
could
Oh, does it?
be problematic.
Well,
but I
I actually, as I'm saying this out loud,
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember, well, we had two discrepancies.
I think it
The
is though, wasn't that the?
Terrell's
Sorry.
presentation, I'm trying to.
Right, and he said that, I thought he was talking about, is it California or Oregon or something, like has decades of research that really
Yes.
supports this, so I thought it was at
Higher.
least, at least this 0.64.
I think so too.
Okay, so we're gonna copy this phrase, Don, and take it down to the sentence that you were editing.
Just one quick question. Are we including the pre-screener in this? And if so, are we doing 2 validated studies on it or just the one?
We don't have it yet, so like it doesn't exist
Okay.
at this point, so.
You want-
So after, and then insert that after validated.
Just put that there.
Yep. And then do a comma once you do comma. And should be validated on Minnesota's supervision population. So keep that there. And then at the very end, when feasible or if feasible,
If feasible.
if feasible,
If what?
if feasible. And then in line 2, DOC will coordinate validation and revalidation. So if you could add before revalidation, if you could add the validation and.
We'll coordinate validation and revalidation.
Yeah. And then at the very end of that sentence, as funding is available.
You need, there should be.
What would you suggest?
That the if feasible covers that.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, you're right. So, and yeah, we can take, in the very first sentence, Don, take out should be at the very end of the second line there. First sentence, second line. How do people feel about that?
Works for me.
I think it works. I just question some of the trailer tools and I don't have the information that agencies are currently using, like the Warna and others. I don't know if they meet that. And so I'd just be concerned if they're doing that and then also we put this in there, then they can't use those trailer tools that they've been using, training, spend money on. And I don't know if that's the gold standard and who says it's the gold standard. And I'm just throwing out questions.
That's in the APPA standards.
Yeah.
And actually it does throw out a tool that we've used. So like we won't, I mean, we'd stopped using it for this reason, but we would not be able to go back to it.
Yeah.
So I do think that is the point, is to try to
Mhm.
get a minimum level of like validation on the tools that everyone's using.
And I agree. I think we should be using the best tools and evidence-based practices. They've done the studies and they've shown the work, and this is why. So I just want to throw it out there that there are some, like you said, there are some tools that may not meet that requirement.
Yeah.
Okay, other or was that all from you, Kelly? Sorry. Okay.
That's all I have.
Others on this policy, comments, feedback, anything? Okay. One more time, and then I can go to, we could then vote to take a vote here. So anything else at all? Or do we feel comfortable moving into, then I would entertain a motion as all of the edits that are on the screen here that we've gone through with Don would be moved to pass.
I would move.
Okay, we have a motion from Carter. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay, we have a second from Kurt. Don, do you want to take a roll call?
Ron Anthony.
Aye.
Ron Anthony, aye. Julia Tella.
Aye.
Julia Tella, aye. Kim Britt. I think she had fallen off. Amber Brown. Amber. Molly Brunner.
Aye.
Molly Brunner, aye. Carter Deers.
Yes.
Carter Deers, aye. Cami Gens.
Aye.
Cami Gens, aye. Kevin Glass.
Aye.
Kevin Glass, aye. Tracy Green.
Aye.
Tracy Green, aye. Sorry. Don Lanoy.
Aye.
Don Lanoy, aye. Marlon Mazzaros. Marlon, aye. Kelly Mitchell.
Yes.
Kelly Mitchell, aye. Kurt Mortensen.
Aye.
Kurt Mortensen, aye. Becca Muscat.
Aye.
Becca Muscat, aye. John Priam.
Aye.
John Priam, aye. John Shiro.
Aye.
John Shiro, aye. Lane Sutherland.
Aye.
Lane Sutherland, aye. Jennifer Verdez.
Aye.
Verdea, aye. Barb Weckman Brecky.
Aye.
Barb Weckman Brecky, aye. And that is unanimous for all members present.
All right.
Nice job.
Yeah, thank you, Tessa, and your subcommittee for all of that. I appreciate it.
We did some. Instead of just the committees doing it.
Go ahead, sorry.
So the next thing is IPV, but we have two folks, I think, who are waiting to do some presentation to us today.
Press Hamilton online, and then we've got, I've seen at least one of the individuals that Carter got coming for the workload stuff.
So I wonder if we should do the workload study and the LSUMI update, and then maybe take a short break.
That works.
Deal.
I guess we'll be done. But yeah, go ahead. I will kick it over then to, which one are we have
Are
first
we starting with the
here?
workload study?
The workload study looks like it's up next.
So as we all, sometime back, we approved the workload study. We approved one of the, I think it was one of the universities or one of the research companies to work with us in completing the Minnesota workload study. And I'm going to turn it over to Carter to introduce who is here related to that, to provide us kind of where they're at with the status, challenges,
They're
and
in
an
the, they're in the
update.
same room too. I'm sorry.
So
They are now panelists.
And you changed your name. So I'm this is from Evident Change. We have Andrea Bogie and Sarah Covington. They've been our project managers. I know they have different titles, but they've been helping us with the leadership team as to setting the initial standards, and to really driving this forward. And then most recently, kicking off the design committee of a number of people around the state. And so I'll hand it over to Andrea and Sarah to let us know where we're at with that workload study.
Thanks, Carter. Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me okay?
We can,
Yes.
thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. My name is Sarah Covington. I'm a data solutions analyst with Evident Change, joined with Andrea Bogie, my colleague. We're the co-leads of the workload study. We're usually not in the same room, but calling today from Madison, Wisconsin. Andrea's home base is actually in Minneapolis. We have, let's see, are you sharing your screen? I believe so. Can you all see the screen?
You are.
Okay,
We
great.
can
Thank
see
you.
it.
Thank you. Just a couple of high-level updates on the progress of the study. If there's anything that you'd like a deeper dive into and we just don't have the time today, we're always more than happy to meet with any or all of you if you'd like to discuss anything in more detail. I think we can go to the next slide. So Evident Change is a nonprofit organization that works with social service agencies in providing data and research. Largely, we work with adult and juvenile criminal justice agencies, but also quite a bit in child protective services and adult protective services, a little bit in education, but those are typically the agencies we work with. We formerly were called the National Council on Crime and Delinquency, but again, because of our sort of breadth of work that we do with other agencies, we've recently changed our name to Evident Change. And as mentioned, we're working with the state to conduct a workload study. Ultimately, the goal is to get the necessary information to update the state funding formula. And so, that's sort of the third bullet here is describing. But how we go about this, one of the first things we're going to be looking at spending some time doing is understanding the time that it takes agents to do community supervision work. With this information, we can understand what are the, looking at the sort of overall demand for services, based on the client population, we can get a sense of, how much is resources are needed to complete that work. There is a component of it that we're interested in, and that's sort of the quality component, or what is the good, what are the standards or expectations? And we want to ensure that those time estimates can reflect where the state wants to be in terms of the quality of practice. Another thing we're looking at is trying to understand the administrative costs for providing supervision. So what are the supports needed in order for supervision to happen, essentially. And again, lastly, we'll, with this information, we can get it, what are the updates to the funding formula to ensure that agencies are sufficiently funded. Just a quick, timeline where we're at. We kicked off the project in the early summer and have been doing some planning since then. Right now, we're really kind of in our study design stage. So that when we talk about the study, that's really specifically the time study that we're going to be doing. So currently, like I said, we're in that stage. We're going to be finalizing materials at the start of the year. The actual training, the actual study itself, or the data collection, where agents are going to be recording time on a sample of cases, that's going to be, we're looking at spring of 2026. And typically it's about a 2-month data collection period. Then, the data will come back to us, we'll perform analysis and hopefully get the results by end of the year. So as I mentioned, we've been, planning and in our sort of design stage, been meeting bi-weekly with members of a leadership team, some faces, tiny faces in the room I see, or to help with just general progress, study development, learn about the practice in the state, and just logistics, things like that. We conducted a large statewide practice survey, trying to really and I'll talk a little bit more in details of what sort of the topics that we addressed, but really with the intent of understanding kind of the landscape of practice across the state and how to basically to inform the study design. As Carter mentioned, we just had a work with a design committee of representatives from the three systems, from agents to leadership, to refine the data collection forms, which are close to being finalized. And then we've been working a bit with STI to figure out how to develop a query for agencies to, inform the sampling, and also give us accounts if needed to update the funding formula. So just a couple highlights from progress. The practice survey, I was really impressed with our response rate. I think we had a 93% response rate. I think we got 24 CCAs, 13 CPOs, and then 14 DOC districts responded to the survey. And the topics that we were asking, questions were about what are the different risk and needs assessments used across the state, including, what are the thresholds and cutoff scores for the different risk levels? What are the array of different supervision levels and contact standards associated with them, the extent of implementation of, EVPs, availability of, and access to training resources and challenges and resources. The point, as I mentioned, is to inform the study design, so to kind of get a sense of what is the landscape of practice in Minnesota. What do we need to be measuring in terms of the different supervision levels? And, ultimately, I think this is going to be really helpful with providing a lens on understanding the data we collect. Anything else to add? I'm trying to think of.
I don't think so.
Okay. Jump in anytime. Another thing just to highlight is that, as a result of our recent onsite, earlier this month, we've got 3 data collection forms that we'll be using for the study. 2 of the forms are case-based forms. So one's basically a supervision form, and then another form that will have different case, more like investigative case types. So PSIs, PDIs, bail studies, and things like that are a little bit more procedural in nature and not an ongoing supervision level. So those are the 2 different data collection forms for the cases. And then we have a third form, which is, call administrative form, or, a non-case related work. So it's essentially things like, training, unit meetings, anything that's not directly casework. And so with this information, we can understand how much time staff realistically have available for their assigned cases. So it will inform what do we need to deduct from their sort of full-time status in order to figure out, when work time that is not available for direct services. These forms, we have a template drafted in Smartsheets, but ultimately these forms will be available in Smartsheets for the actual data collection. So the challenges we've encountered, probably not surprising to you all, there's this, as a result of the survey, we did learn that there's a lot of different supervision levels across the state. It's, how different agencies characterize or define supervision varies quite a bit. The standards, like the contact standards, and even, within some of the more traditional supervision roles, even the thresholds that are used in defining what levels vary from agency to agency. There's, differences in practice expectations and what are the standards across the state. So that's been challenging to try to take this sort of a universal approach to something that is that looks different from agency to agency. Determining the scope. So what are we studying? What is funded by the state versus what's a county responsibility or local responsibility. So there's been some of our discussions, and also kind of the extent of involvement. Do we want to go big? Do we want to be narrow and focus on select few agencies? We are going big. We want to have as much data as we can and representative as much practice across the state as possible. And then and just limited access to administrative data, to case counts and things like that. So often we do have some access ahead of time to sample and to understand what caseloads look like across the state, and that's a bit tricky. So where we're at now, we're currently looking at county and agent recruitment for the study. Again, we're trying to go cast a pretty wide net in terms of who's going to be participating. And there's different reasons. Part of it is because, there are, because of the scope of different supervision levels by agency, and to get a sense of, what, we'll ultimately be distilling this and grouping the supervision levels down, or the time associated with supervision, because it's, in terms of practicality, we wouldn't want something that is going to be impossible to use in a funding formula. But so we're going to have to do a lot of simplification. But in the meantime, we want to kind of be able to look at it, have the data information available to look at a broad array of practice, and then figure out the best way to sort of group it and simplify later. Yeah, again, currently in recruitment, we've developed, we're just in the process of finalizing a data request to get counts from all agencies. Basically, the aggregate level, like how many cases are there. Ultimately, we like to have use estimates like an average daily population, so it's a little bit more, I'd say, resistant to temporal changes, or not limited to one point in time. So that request will go out, I think, fairly soon. We're finalizing the forms and data collection materials. We have another work group meeting that's remote after the start of the year, and then we'll be doing a pilot study to test forms and get them in good shape. And then we'll train and implement the study. Andrea and I will be, traveling across the state, hopefully get as many people trained in person as possible, but we'll obviously probably have to have some remote trainings as well to supplement. And then we'll, be estimating administrative costs and ultimately putting it all together. Yeah, maybe a contact slide. This is, we could put our email addresses in the chat, like I said. And again, if there's anything, if we want to schedule another time to talk, if you'd like to hear anything in more detail and we run out of time today, we're more than happy to meet anytime. So we can put our contact information there, but wanted to make sure we allow for some time for questions or any additional information you'd like to hear.
Andrea and Sarah, thank you. That was great information. I think good update. Any questions from the committee?
Andrea, Sarah, one of the things that I think I found interesting that's a little different than the way that the Department of Corrections does their time studies or workload studies is that you're hoping to that almost all agents that are in scope, meaning there's a couple exclusions that we don't know, for example, brand new agents or somebody who's not performing up to task or something like that. But there's a narrower window of the the duration of the information that's collected, but that almost everybody is participating as long as they're willing to do so. Is that correct?
Yeah, we wanted to have a broad. I mean, we discussed different approaches of saying, okay, we're going to really look at a targeted sample of these are the people that are maybe the high performers, or these are the people that are the that we would expect to see doing the work that we would, where it wants to be headed. And I think there's concerns about that in general, just about any sort of systemic bias that could introduce, if it's like, okay, well, there's only certain agencies that are doing this, and what are we excluding if we aren't including, if we have a little bit more of a targeted approach, and we might be not seeing that sort of the other nuances or complexities that supervision entails that might be, again, more common in areas that we might be inadvertently excluding based on a sort of targeted approach. Again, like I said, because of the array of different supervision levels, and we'd like to kind of get a broader understanding of what supervision looks like, and then have the ability to then consolidate or condense that information or summarize it across, where there are differences, rather than not having the information to begin with going into the study. So another reason why we wanted to have a broader sample. And I think there is some contextual information that's, if we sort of say, okay, these are some agencies that maybe we have, on the forums that, I know it's probably a little abstract to not see, to be talking about this, not seeing the actual data collection forms, but we worked with the work group, the design group, to kind of understand what are some key activities that we could measure that would be indicative of a certain level of practice. So case planning, if a case contact involves case planning, or we can also quantify the number of face-to-face contacts versus other contacts, so that it's, if we can look at things like, did this supervision level meet the minimum contact standards and things like that, that would help give us kind of a quality assurance lens on the practice or on the data to make sure that this is good practice. So I think, where am I going with that? I think the context of that, of saying, like, well, we will look at how much time it takes to do when those standards are met, or when we're seeing indications of that level of quality. But we'll also be able to look at, like, well, when standards aren't met, or is there, what does the time look like? And not that's a primary objective of ours, to look at, it's interesting, but I think it does provide some context in terms of, making the results a little bit more defensible to external agencies and people who aren't maybe as familiar, to say, like, when we see this level of practice performed, this is how much time it takes, and it looks different when it's not performed that way. So.
Great. Yeah, that was a good follow-up question. That I wasn't aware of, and good explanation. So any other questions? Hearing none in the room and seeing none online. Any follow-up or any closing statements or anything from Sarah or Andrea?
Not that I think, again, if there's anything we can, we're more than happy to, we can talk at length about this. So if there's any, questions that come up, feel free to reach out. I know people have our contact information. We're going to put those maybe in the chat.
Oh, yeah, sure.
We'll add those real quick to the chat, just so you all have it. But thank you for this opportunity to talk to you all.
Great. We appreciate it. Great to see us at this this level now through this process, because it's been long needed and kind of waited as we've worked through the early process about a year ago. So we appreciate you working with the state. So thank you.
Appreciate it as well. Thank you.
I will turn it over to Kelly for the validation study update.
Great. All right. So Zachary Hamilton, Zachary Hamilton is doing the validation study. He's from the University of Nebraska, and he's joined us today just to give us a short update. And he'll be back for a longer period of time, probably in our very near future, because he does have a lot of data already ready. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hamilton.
Hello, can everybody hear me okay?
We can.
Excellent. Yeah, so just wanted to give a brief update. I don't have slides, so I'll use words. But the study started as you probably know, a little bit later than we had hoped. Some of the money was tied to BJA money, and as Kelly mentioned earlier in your meeting, we had to find a different route to get things started. But once everything got started, we started by getting data sharing agreements together. In particular, we went and received the LSCMI data, but also wanted to make sure that the recidivism data that we used for the validation was more comparable to your population. So we actually went to the courts directly, and they provided us with all misdemeanor and felony criminal history data for all individuals that have received the LSCMI that are in our study sample. The study sample is really large. It's over 130,000 individuals, which also have assessment data that's tracked across multiple years. We also identified a subject matter expert group to work with to help us identify key staff and participate in our usability study. Essentially, we wanted to identify whether or not the tool was being used as intended, whether or not people had positive or negative feelings towards any aspects of the tool. It was sort of a semi-structured interview format, but we also sort of incorporated that within 5 different focus groups that had roughly 10 participants each across the state. We tried to stress usability of the tool and to see whether or not there were different aspects of county to county variations that may impact the accuracy of the tool, apart from sort of overall feelings about it. We use these focus group findings to guide our statistical analyses, particularly how to examine distinctions between groups and to examine distinctions of the tool over time. We've gathered all of that evidence. We've got the statistical analyses nearly completed. We've examined the predictive performance overall. We've broken it down by race and gender and county. And we've further examined risk levels. In particular, we've examined the individualized risk level categories that counties tend to use, as well as estimated the distinctions between what it currently looks like versus what it would look like if a more standardized approach was used. We've also examined some different ways of potentially adjusting or recalibrating the tool to improve its accuracy. And currently we're working with your risk needs team in regards to finalizing what analyses will eventually go into the final report and whether or not there's any adjustments that need to take place. There will be likely an interim report that reports on all of those things I just talked about. And then later on, there's an extra piece of the analysis that looks at inter-rater reliability, in particular, whether or not individuals are all scoring the tool similarly when they see the same type of case or the same case in particular. And that is going through the process of your proficiency examination. So right now you have a scheduled proficiency examination, and we're going to wait and utilize the results of that proficiency examination as part of this inter-rater reliability analysis and wrap everything up sometime in June once that information is collected and we're able to analyze it. Kelly, I'm not sure if you wanted me to go further than that or if there's anything that I missed that you were hoping that I'd talk about.
I think you hit all the points, and then what I wanted to tack on is Dr. Hamilton actually presented some of those initial findings to the risk and needs work group last week. I was able to sit in on that meeting, and it's amazing sort of what we're seeing. And so we'll ask him to do the same thing or a similar presentation here at CSAC. But what I've asked Dr. Hamilton and that group to work on is what are the implications of the findings that he's making, and how does that shape policy considerations that we should be thinking about? So we all know that one of the biggest things coming out of this is the potential for cutoff scores that are the same around the state. So I really want Dr. Hamilton to work with our risk and needs group to make sure that we have all those questions framed up so that we can have a really good discussion about them when they've had a chance to work through it. So we'll lean on their expertise to help get the right questions to us. And I'm really excited to have that information come forward in the next couple of months. Any questions for Dr. Hamilton? All right. Well, thanks so much for coming today. They have no questions.
No problem. That sounds great. You'll have a good holiday.
Thank you. You too. All right. Do you folks want to take a short break before we move on to the IPV policy? Yeah. All right. So let's take a, how long? Go till 11:50, 50 or 55. What do you think we can handle? 50, 55.
50, so we can just keep
50.
yeah.
Okay. So we'll take a little break till 11:50. And then Tracy, who's been waiting very patiently, will be on deck.
I'll go ahead and take your break. I can tell you when you get back.
Okay.
I want to keep you from that.
There you go. All right, we're gonna call the meeting back to order. Thanks for your patience, everyone. All right, and the next policy that we have up is the IPV policy, and I believe Tracy Green's gonna take the lead, and we also have Liz Kramer, not Liz, Liz Richards. I'm so sorry, Liz Richards here from the DOC. Go ahead, Tracy.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Is that really loud?
Yeah.
I just turned up my volume and I was like, wow, sorry, didn't mean to blow you all out. Yes, Liz is on our committee with us also. So Liz, please chime in if you have any comments. I had hoped to be there earlier, or I'd hoped to be in person today, but we had an absolute skating rink here in our area. When I left for work at 7 this morning, it was like like driving on a skating rink. So it's not ideal to present this, I think, in on this format, but we'll do the best we can. So just for kind of in summary, we've brought this forward a few times for discussion at CSAC. Had some great feedback, great discussion, great items that we brought back to our Domestic Violence Steering Committee. And we're here bringing back the updated policy. And I think, I can't see the top of the screen, but I think it should say 12/2025 CSAC version for review. There it is, highlighted in yellow so that we're all on the same page. So what I will do is just go through it in the areas that we've had some changes. And if anyone has any questions or there's any further discussion needed on anything else, please let me know. So first we'll go down to applicability. We had some discussion there about will it include work release, and will it also include case managers in the institution as they're we have inmates transitioning out. I got some feedback back from Kelly that yes, those should apply, and that's actually Liz's area of expertise. So this is our proposed wording back, including that work release and the case managers.
And I'll just add on to that what we mean is it says case managers during release planning. So like that's the extent of the role. Like we're really expecting case managers to connect in with the agent if they're the ones that receive information that the individual is that a victim is interested in reunification during that process.
And then thanks, Kelly, for that clarification. Then I think we tried to down below articulate that a little more better on what that role is.
Great.
So that was then going down to definitions under reunification. There was some just slight wording changes in there. We kind of went through the policy to make sure where we clarified when it means victim and when it means at-risk person. So the at-risk person was removed for this reunification definition. All right, going on to the next page under number 3, under procedures, we added under B, civil and tribal wording to make that more inclusive. Again, kind of a brief change. And then going down to number 4, we did some more clarification on the release of information. That really, when we're working with these people, we have the authority to get releases of information for victims, but we just added that it's encouraged for cases where it's an at-risk person. Okay. I'm going to keep going unless I hear any comments. Okay.
Oh,
then
I'm
going
sorry.
down under determining.
Tracy,
oh, sorry.
Marlon does have a comment. Please go ahead.
Applicability. release agents. There may need to be some clarification for work release facilities to also receive that information because it just seems like sometimes there's a little bit of a breakdown in communication, especially for the contracted facilities. I don't know if it's the same way for like the county jail facility, work release facilities, but yeah, just might have to be some clarification in there sometimes.
I apologize. I could not hear anything that was asked. I think there's, I'm
That was
getting.
my fault.
That's, okay, perfect.
I didn't turn a mic on.
You wanna say that again?
And it just has to do with the applicability. I can't say that word. DOC work release agents, but it also probably should specify like work release facilities to be aware. A lot of times there isn't, that communication doesn't come down that there's a person that maybe shouldn't or should be excluded from coming to visit or all of that. So.
Can I just ask a clarifying question here? Are you asking for an addition to the applicability section to say in this list of people that it applies to work release facility staff? Is that what your request is?
Or facility, yeah, and yeah, just that the communication gets to them in general. Right.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that that's what you're asking for and not necessarily a specific kind of provision within the policy itself.
Yeah, no, just some verbiage in there that
I certainly think we can add in there. I don't know if it, yeah. Where Tracy is on the screen, she keeps popping away.
Your thoughts on that, Liz? Or
I mean,
Kelly?
I think from my perspective, I think it's fine to add into the applicability thing if work release facility staff.
It's making me trying to think about like what the communication flow should be, because it feels like, again, like naming a particular group without saying what the responsibility of that group is it's difficult. And I think what Marlon's asking for is that the agent would be communicating with the work release facility or like the halfway house that this person is placed at about the reunification plans, right?
Well, one of my questions would be and I do not know what the work release policy says in terms of any of that connection between the work release agents and the facility staff. I don't know if it's covered there or not. I don't know if anybody.
I don't know either. I'm guessing it's more about eligibility and approval for work release, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess just you're right though. It would be probably more clarification coming down from the work release agent just to make sure that the facilities are clear, because sometimes just something that my own experience seeing it happen, you find out in hindsight that somebody wasn't supposed to be in communication with the individual, and come to find out they've been the person picking them up and taking them out doing job searches for 3 weeks already or something. I don't know, yeah, better communication, I guess, would be probably separate from what we're actually doing here, but just a note to.
You don't get either, in your old role, working at one of these locations, there was not good communication either about prohibited contacts or allowed contacts.
Right.
So is there another location where that concern can be discussed versus this policy?
Or a portion of this policy, because if you're going to add them, you should also differentiate which parts of this policy apply to them and which ones don't, because, are we asking them then all to be trained on this? Are we asking them to be communicated with, or should they be trained in all these things? Or Should they
I
understand
mean,
reunification?
I'm a proponent of contracted facilities being able to get the training all the way through that, you know, they're the places that are spending the lion's share of time with the individuals and seem to get the least amount of training on everything. So, but I guess it's, yeah, maybe there's probably more to discuss than just that. Seeing that right now, it just kind of popped in my head that a lot of, you know, remembering my old role and like just having instances come up where, you know, shouldn't have been communication and it wasn't relayed to us until after the fact. You know, and just them sorts of things. So
Can I ask one more follow-up question? There would always be a work release agent though that is working with the contracted agency, right?
yeah,
Okay, so how about, in order not to stop this policy right now, how about if I take that back as a to-do to my team to talk about where can we shore up policy to make sure that that type of connection is happening and that there's better, clearer communication about prohibited contact and allowable contact under this policy. I'm just thinking there's more work to be done there than we might be able to do today, is what I'm thinking.
that's fine. Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, it also seems to me you're talking about something broader than just reunification.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, so that's why I think perhaps in the work release policy, if there needs to be a policy change, might make more sense.
Yeah, but that's my team, so I can take that back and get that going, get that work going so that we can shore that up.
All right, thank you, Liz and Kelly, for helping with that. One thing I'm going to go back to then, 3A is where we clarified, where if a case manager or DOC victim services staff receives a request from a victim regarding reunification, the assigned agent must be notified. So that's where it's the role of the case managers is to notify the agent in the then reunification process. Then we went down to number 4 was talking about the release of information. Again, just clarifying the release of information with a victim versus release of information with an at-risk person. Going down under determining appropriateness, I think did a little language change under number 3. Agent shall require engagement of relevant programming. And then going down to D is where we did some rewriting based on some concerns or discussion, I should say, between CSAC and our committee. So the numbers in these have changed pretty significantly. We talk about 1, prior to independent management supervision of intimate partner violence and domestic violence cases, DOC agent of facility case manager shall complete standardized victim-centered reunification training. We also talk about training a little more as we go through. Then there was talk about agent shall assist victims and at-risk persons in connecting with local community-based advocacy. I think the wording in the past was a little more firm, like we shall direct them to. And this was, well, we try to assist them. We want them to make that connection, but we can't force them to do anything. So we shall assist them in making that contact. And talking about safety plans. There was some question about whose role is that to do the safety plan. So we're hoping that this language rewritten is that it's not for the agent to do safety planning with them. It's to make that referral to advocacy to assess victims or at-risk person in doing safety planning. Number 3 is kind of, again, just we put into a separate paragraph, but just talking about we need to protect confidentiality in the process. And we need to make sure we let victims know how information will be used in protecting the confidentiality. Any questions at the bottom of 2? I'll roll right into then 4 and 5 was just a rewording of them to make sure that we're all clear. If the victim withdraws interest, that used to be number 5. And then for clients being released from prison, DOC Victim Service Restorative Justice Unit may provide a wraparound safety meeting for victims who have serious safety concerns. And that used to be number 6. Any discussion or comments on that section?
Tracy, can I ask, in D1, I wonder if we should explicitly call out work release agents as also required to, I mean, agents is they're included in agents, but maybe they wouldn't see themselves included in agents there.
So just use the same language as noted above.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Supervising agencies, DOC work release agents, and case managers.
Yeah.
Perfect. Is that something we want to formally change now if we go to approval so that it can be sent out to the agencies?
Yeah, Don, if you could go up to D1. So in the second line, before the word agents, can you do community supervision? Oops. Comma, or yeah, agents, comma.
DOC work release?
Yep.
Agents. And case managers?
Comma, and then we can leave what's there, yeah.
Perfect. That'll be consistent with up above then. That's a good catch. Thanks, Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll keep going. Then the last section that we went down to was training. And, you know, there was discussion in this, as it has been in some of the other discussions that we had today, is where to spell out who to mandate that training. So what the Domestic Violence Steering Committee is willing to do is continue to offer statewide trainings at different venues. I said, you know, we could do them at MCA, we can do them at MACPO, we can do them at MCA, we can just offer general trainings. They did recently do a training that their goal was to videotape, that it would be available on a link down below where they could watch a recorded training that was already completed. But apparently there were some sound issues in that training. So we are going to be doing another training and we'll train it live, record it live, so that can be saved. And if people can't make it to other live trainings around the state, there'll be that one that's recorded for people to watch. So we've left the training section as within the first year of employment, supervising agents. We'll probably want to do the same wordsmithing here. Supervising agents and DOC facility case managers must complete standardized training on the IPV reunification principles, victim-centered approach to corrections, which is the training that's been offered statewide and will be continued to be offered, and didn't specify who was that it had to be through the Domestic Violence Steering Committee. It could be later added if we wanted to into the State Training Academy, or other counties that do their own could do so. But we would have that training. We'll have training continue to be available and through a link down below. And then, as you can see down below on D, once that training is completed, would be happy, then we'll provide a link for the recorded training. And then under references, we did attach and we had these the last meeting we had, the actual guiding principles policy, some samples of releases of information, and some other the documents there, and those all will be on a link those links provided to Violence Free Minnesota, who currently has them all available. So I believe that is the changes that were made. Liz, is anything I forgot?
No, I think you've covered everything, unless there's some other questions or concerns.
Just, two questions.
I'll give you a mic.
Thank you. So under training, my question is, what about seasoned staff that have not been trained in it? I'm assuming that we would like them to be trained. Similar to the other policies that we're putting in place that's mandating new staff along with established staff that are already in place that haven't had the training yet. And so I just put that out there. And then was
That
there
is
any-
addressed. Sorry,
Oh,
can
go
I
ahead.
just finish up?
Yep,
That's addressed
yep,
under
yep.
D1. But if you want us to clarify that, you know, under training also, we could sure do that.
Yeah, because I would say I think some of them are already doing it. That they're already in that role under
Yep.
D1, and so they may not have already received the training or want to be
Yeah.
required to.
Yeah.
So I think having it defined under training would help out, iron that out a little bit.
Should we move D1 to training? Or should we copy it or just add wording to under training to reflect that? Thoughts?
D1 to training, that makes sense.
I'd say add it to training.
So add it, leave it there and add it? Okay, so just move or copy D1.
Move it to training, right?
Well, no,
Cut and paste, right?
we're not saying that.
We're not saying it.
No.
Oh.
She's saying, like, probably would it be in the E1, like existing staff should receive training as soon as practicable? Something like that?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Or current staff should receive training as soon as practicable?
Yeah, similar to the other
Yep.
policies.
That's a good point.
Hey, Don, would you mind adding that to the end of 1?
Very end.
Yeah.
Or is it become a 2?
Or it could be 2. It could be a 2, yeah. Yeah, maybe make it a 2.
Yeah.
Existing staff.
Should receive training as soon as practicable.
I would just have a question. Do you want the qualifier, existing staff
It
who are doing
says-
management supervision
Oh,
of an IPV DV caseload?
And that was my follow-up question to E1 then.
Right.
Is the intent for all supervising agent or is the intent for the clarifier like is under D1?
Well, I think the DVSC would like to see everyone, but I think there was some discussion here about how broadly to put it within the policy.
So as it notes under D1, we put in prior to independent management or case supervision of independent partner violence and domestic violence cases.
So that
And
language should probably be added to E1 as well then?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And E2, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't preclude, yes, we
No,
want everybody
correct.
trained in it, but for the
Yep.
policy.
That makes sense.
Could say it's highly encouraged for
Well said.
Everyone.
for
Yeah.
everyone or whatever.
And that could maybe even be a 3 if we wanted to, is that it's strongly encouraged.
for all.
This training is strongly encouraged for all staff working with any victims. Because it's really talks about the training itself and just how to work with victims and making all of our supervision victim centered.
Mhm.
For all staff.
I'd support that.
All staff working with victims, is that it? Or?
Yes. Are encouraged.
Like all, no, I mean, all IPV related.
No,
Or
the
anything?
training itself isn't, it's just working with victims. So the statewide training went out, and I think the DOC required all agents who work with victims to take the training. Now, it's not mandatory for statewide, but it's encouraged, because it really just talks about how to work with victims and how to make them make all your approaches when there's a victim in a case victim-centered.
Okay.
So I think E1 and E2 then need to be, have that wording changed.
Right.
What?
E1, E2 to change, was it to D?
To take the D1 language about supervision.
What
Oh.
language? So go up to D1 and they're gonna have you pull some language from up there. Okay, so which language?
So for current staff who, and I don't know if you need the term independent, that's your world, right? But for current or existing staff, whatever your language is down below, who do management or supervision of management supervision, that phrase right there of intimate partner violence and domestic violence cases.
Okay, so grab that phrase, management through cases.
Right here.
In that, yep.
Through cases. And that's going to be added to both 1 and 2 down under E.
I don't think it's.
Very end.
So for existing staff, I would just say existing staff who, is it provide management supervision? Is that the right
Provide
phrase?
case management.
Yeah, who provide.
And then should receive training as soon as practical. And then under 1, within the first year of employment, supervising agents and DOC facility case managers who provide management and supervision of that same phrase.
Yeah.
Same, yeah, paste.
Yeah, so case management are there 1, who provide case management, right where the cursor is blinking.
Is it case management / supervision?
Yes.
You want that down here too as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And then my other question was for internal controls, were we gonna have anything under that reflected in case plan or comprehensive plans or?
Should the, one question is, does the ROI get documented in CSTS, release of information?
Good.
So that's 1, the release of information should be documented in CSTS. And then you're saying case, the comp
I don't know.
plan.
Comprehensive plans, just reflecting that the training's being done or completed.
What?
I'm just trying to think, does that language, we keep a copy of the ROI and chrono it, but I mean, that's short of documented, I guess that's. But I don't have a problem adding the language, yeah.
I don't know, I'm just
Yeah.
asking how
Yeah.
how do you know there's an ROI?
Yeah.
Good point.
Copy
Yeah,
of it.
that's a good point.
We would hang on to a copy of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm having a hard time hearing the discussion at the table, so.
Just a discussion on the ROI and how do you keep a copy of the ROI? How do you document it? You know, type thing. Is there a need to add that to the language of the policy or not?
We sure can if you want that in there. I guess I'm not, I look to you more for the internal controls to be consistent with other policies.
Makes sense.
it's kind of inferred. I mean, we supervision agencies are not, this is not unfamiliar with them to hang on to an RO.
Yeah, I would agree.
But it's pretty commonplace.
So you
So
don't
is
think
that
it
like
should
we
be there?
don't need it?
I don't.
I don't think it's
necessary.
necessary in there. I
Yeah.
don't. I mean, we have ROIs for nearly everything you work
Yeah.
with, right?
Okay, so then just training is reported in the comprehensive plans, that kind of thing?
So how does
I
this
don't know.
crosswalk with the training policy we've approved too?
Oh, I
Do
don't.
you know what I mean? Because I know that we said we probably have to go back to that one, and I'm wondering if this is in conjunction with that one, because it's really about our overall training that talks about within the first year of employment and stuff too. And what do we have in there for the internal controls, right? And is
Be consistent.
be consistent with that too. Or does this training section? I don't know, maybe I'm making it too confusing. Does it belong here? Does it belong in that other policy with the other trainings? I don't know.
Well, this is, the other policy is specific to like the core EBP, right?
Right.
And then I would suggest not. This is
I mean,
specific to.
Kind of the same with gender cultural, we had a training requirement there too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, in program, putting them together, they should be close or like somehow maybe
Yeah.
even referenced.
Yeah.
Not to, I'm gonna throw a wrench into the previous discussion. If we just updated the applicability to the which agents and who it's applied to, then you don't need to be so wordy.
Yeah.
Just say staff,
Like
just refer to staff
yeah.
and or you can say applicable staff. It just seems really weird to say all staff that this applies to, as opposed to you've already outlined applicability. Just say all applicable staff maybe.
Well, it was Kelly's
I know.
request, so I don't know if that addresses your question, Kelly, or not. If we say all applicable staff, or do you want it spelled out?
And then where it's different, then you'd spell that out. So for example,
In the training requirements.
you've already said that staff, everybody should be.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine with me too.
We don't have to go through it all right now. Maybe if Tracy just or whoever's updating it, just do it that way or not. It's not the end of the world either way.
Yeah. Okay, so where are we at with this policy? Does this one need to circulate or is it ready for vote today?
No, it needs to circulate. We have not brought this.
Okay. All right, so with the changes that we have today, the expectation is that we take it back to our constituents, get back here for vote in January.
Correct. MACAC will not meet, right, before, CSAC meets before, I'm checking. Yeah, it meets before we meet on the 29th, so it'd have to be February.
When do we meet in February?
February, we meet in the 25th.
So then it would miss our deadline for being a policy right now.
I think it's because this meeting is a different time. Normally, we would have that kind of flow where we would. We just had an earlier December meeting at AMC conference. So.
Okay, well, all right, well, we'll circulate it. We'll get it back on this agenda as soon as we can. So, but likely February, it sounds like. Anything else on this policy?
The only other question I have before we bring it is I think I don't know where it belongs, or the internal controls around the responsibility of this training. So meaning, I appreciate the training link too, because I know that initially it was like, well, how often is this training going to be conducted if you have to have it before you can do your work independently? So having that training link to be sufficient for that then that is obviously accessible. But let's say something shifts or needs to be, like, who's responsible for the information, if it needs to be redone, if it needs to be provided, is it the subgroup? And then does that need to be more explicitly like stated that they're responsible for providing enough training or keeping that online version up to date, or do you see where I'm going with that? Because it's not really, I don't know if that committee is, maybe you are saying, yes, that's fine, we can do all of that, but.
Well, I feel like we're going around in a circle
Yeah.
because we started with it being very clearly to the DVSC being responsible for the
Right.
training. We were asked to remove that. But.
Okay, no, that's fair, but
But we're
then
like, what if that goes away, whatever?
Right, yeah. So I think the DVSC, and which is, at this point, Violence Free Minnesota is heading that up, are willing to take on this responsibility and to keep it moving forward. I mean, obviously, at some point in the future, something may happen, but the intention right now is for the DVSC to take responsibility and to continue to update. So I don't know if you want to build that back into the policy, but I thought there was quite a lengthy discussion about not having that in the
well, there
policy.
was, but then how do we? Maybe I'm just missing some of the semantics, which is totally fine, but then we are saying they have to do this training as it stands here, so
Well-
it's still prescriptive, or is it really like you could, so let's just say, can Scott County just create their own based on those
Yep.
IPV principles?
Well, yes, they could. Hennepin County has done that.
Right.
Hennepin County has their own training that they're doing that's based on these same principles and has but they've developed their own and they're going to use their own.
Okay,
Right? So it doesn't have to be this, but the DVSC is going to take ownership, and the link that this policy will link to will be under Violence Free Minnesota's
Okay.
System.
with that said, then, is this capturing all of that, that, again, it's okay that Hennepin has theirs and we could create one and or we
Mhm.
could use this one? Is that, if it is, it feels like some sentence or something's missing here?
I think it's as far as we can go. I think my point earlier, like, I don't think in this policy, we can tell Violence for Minnesota that they have to do it.
Right,
That was
right.
the purpose.
Agreed.
But if they're doing it, great. And if, I mean, you could say the same thing about all the policies. If whatever it is, whoever's taking the lead on such things, for example, if they fall apart or disband, like, whatever happens, I don't see that happening, but then we'd have to find somewhere else for it or update the policy or different direction.
Okay.
And I think right now it's saying that they have to complete standardized training on the IPV reunification principles.
Yeah.
So it's about it's like focused on these principles are what the training has to be on. I don't think it's saying it has to be a specific training.
Complete standard. Well, standardized training assumes the same or similar.
Mhm.
So as long as we include the IPV reunification principles, that's enough to say, if I create one and Hennepin does, and, the one that's on this link, as long as you just go on that, then you're fine, we're all standard, even if one is 4 hours and one is 30 minutes, or one is read these unification principles, and you're good to go.
Well, I think you're getting to this question about what's appropriate training, and I don't, right? Which is a whole nother thing, which I would assume is part of what you're addressing in your training. Nope, nobody.
The training policy isn't related to this. No, that's related to evidence-based practices, the one that we were talking,
Yeah,
referring.
motivation interviewing
referring
and
to
all that kind of
earlier.
stuff.
I mean, I understand the concerns you're talking about, and I think those concerns will be there, and I would argue that it would be really difficult to build into policy something that's going to be clear, workable, and fully addresses those without tying people into something that may not be what you want to do, right, long term. Yeah, and I think that everybody on the DVSC feels fairly strongly about the integrity of the training, which is partly why the initial language was the DVSC being built directly into the policy. So I think, that can change over time, but I think the folks there are fairly committed to what's an appropriate training in terms of length and content.
Well, the training is referenced in here.
Yes.
It's not a training, it's that
This training, yep. And it's on the standards, right? So even Hennepin County has been working closely with members on the DVSC in the development of their training. The DVSC did actually 2 initial trainings with Hennepin County. before they started developing their own. And that's obviously not spelled out in the policy. I think it would take quite a bit of work to come up with some language.
Sure.
To get it there.
Okay, well, I mean, we're going back to our respective places, so
Yeah.
I'm guessing Mac will probably have similar questions and we'll just move onward, I guess.
Yeah, and I think okay, so I'm gonna suggest we dodge the question right now, because I think we're having this other conversation about training in general.
Yeah.
And maybe there's some work to be done about in the future about how do we ensure standards for any training that's provided, and that probably should be part of that conversation even with STA.
Sure.
I just want to make sure one thing. So you're asking Tracy to go back and just clean up the language so that it reads, rather than this list, that it'll read something that says all applicable staff. That's the one change you want us to do? Is that correct?
Yeah.
I suggested that, and I don't know that there was a consensus, so.
I just wanted to be clear about that, so we know what we're doing, and then we'll send it back to Don to get to the right people.
Yeah, Don can send you the version he just updated, and then you guys
I'll
can
send the version.
clean it up a little bit, and then Don can send it back out to us.
So are you clear, Tracy? I think I understand what we're doing.
I've caught, okay, I believe so. So Don's gonna send it to me. I'll do some cleanup of making sure that we are consistent throughout the policy, talking about agents, caseworkers, etc. Is that the only thing I'm cleaning up?
Actually, instead of using that phrase throughout the policy, it will exist in the applicability section. And then every place else, rather than having a list, it will just say all applicable staff. That's the change.
Okay, I can do that.
Great.
But making sure, because we just said that this was ready to go for, right, our jurisdictions. So is it going back to the subgroup, or is it just going
No.
back to this one edit?
She's just gonna make the edit.
We're going to make those edits. It should be back over to Don. My guess is momentarily.
Oh, I see. Got it. I'm with you now. Perfect.
Yep,
Thank you.
all right. Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks so much for your work on this policy.
Yes.
We're
Yeah.
Making a lot of progress.
And so then it would be February would be the discussion when it comes back here.
Yep,
Okay, sounds great.
you got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, where are we on the
We're at
agenda?
deliverables update, but we have so many from our subgroups. Don, is there anything that has not been brought up as an update that has not been stated?
The only thing is that JRI 2 will be here in January to discuss the supervision standards.
Okay.
Everything else was discussed today.
Okay, thank you, Don.
Okay, and then next item is CSAC definitions. I just wanted to touch base. As every policy has been, the subsequent policies have been coming through, we have fewer and fewer duplicates that are not the same, or, fewer and fewer definitions that are not the same. And looking at the couple that are left, case plan is the first one up there. There's only a couple that are left. The policies that are different are the first policies that actually passed through. So the ISR policy was our very first policy that was passed. And then that initial training policy, I think, is in the CBI, the cognitive behavioral interventions. I think that's So what I would suggest is that we use the later definitions, because those have been refined over time, and that we just go back and conform any policies that have not yet been approved to those later definitions. So anything that we put through for the policymaking process right now, these will have the latest definition for each one of these things. And then I think we're good. The ISR policy, we won't be able to fix until I don't know when that comes up for review again.
So I'll send, I can't remember who ended up with it, whether it was Sarah or Deb, but I'll just send them a note with just to that effect.
Yeah.
Because then they'll just put it in a folder and say, okay, here's my running list of things to consider.
Once a policy becomes a DOC policy, it goes on a schedule for review, annual review.
It depends on if it's technical, standard, or enhanced, but annual would be enhanced, and I think
this
ISR is enhanced.
Yeah. So it goes on a schedule for annual review. So we will note that these definitions need to be updated in the ISR policy. And so that'll happen at the next time it comes through, which is probably going to be April or May of next year, because I think that's when it went into effect. And then for all the other ones that we're putting through now, case planning, training, risk assessment, we'll just make sure the latest definition is the one that's in there. So then I think we are caught up on all the definitions.
Can you clean up then what is the most recent definitions of all of that and send out both to this group and like for us, I would like to bring that back to MACAC also in January, so as not to, I assume it'll be fine, but then it's precisely what is going to be recommended, you know, for all of the policies going forward.
Yeah, I can do that.
I think this is it. Oh, wait a minute.
That brings
Well, like
up,
up there, I'm just saying which one of those two,
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's the top one, so like strip out whatever
Oh, I see.
ones
Yeah.
are. So what are
Yep.
what are we suggesting? These are the final ones that we would be, either.
Yep.
so that brings up a good question on the reviewing of the policies that were created and approved through CSAC, and they sit now in the DOC policy. Does that mean they come back here for review if there's any need for changes as well, or is it just reviewed at the DOC level?
So it gets the DOC process is what triggers the review.
Then it comes.
So like we have like automatic, you have to do something with this policy. But this ISR is the first one that's gonna be in that bucket. So I think that's a really good point that we need to build a process to make sure it comes back through here too. More of the plane.
More of the plane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's right.
So maybe it goes through all the other steps, and then this is the last step, so we follow all the other processes that we already have to do.
Or would it be opposite? Because if it went through all of that, and then we said we want to make this change, wouldn't you have to go all the way back through all
through
your
that, huh?
processes? So wouldn't it be like here first?
Well,
and
like
then-
but then it could change again and then come back.
That's true.
I mean,
It's up to you all, I guess.
We will talk about it and bring a
There you
recommendation
go.
back for how do we do that. All right, bring back a rec. All right, I think that's it for that item.
Perfect. Is there any other business that anyone has?
There is,
There is?
yes, it's your last meeting.
I was just gonna say that. I was, yeah.
It is, yes.
I wanted to formally recognize that this is John Shiro's last meeting, and it's been a pleasure to work with you. And I'm really bummed that you have to leave because it has been really great to co-chair this committee with you. You've really added a lot to this process, and I just want to recognize your service.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. I agree. Thank you so much. It's been absolutely a pleasure. And thank you for everything.
I appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you for your leadership contributions. Much appreciated.
I appreciate that. I've been here since the inception. We helped build this plane as it continues to be built at this point as we fly it. So, and it's been a fun journey. We've gotten a lot done up to this point, and I trust the committee will continue to get a lot done moving forward. So thank you.
So you're rotating off,
I am,
and then
Kevin will be rotating. So as everybody likely knows, we talked about here in October, we transitioned to CCA. However, I remained as a MACBO representative on the CSAC for the remainder of the year for the 3 months, just for a smoother transition for CSAC at that point. It just didn't make sense at the MACBO level, at our level, to appoint somebody for 3 months. You don't even, you go through the learning process. It takes longer than that 3 months for that. So Kevin will be taking my place as the current president of MACBO. on as a MACBO representative on here. Tracy's the other MACBO representative at this point. And then I believe Kevin will be moving from the EBP chair to the MACBO representative on CSAC, and he will take over as the co-chair.
Correct. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So welcome.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you.
Great.
Any public comment?
If anyone is on as an attendee, please raise your hand if you have public comment. Seeing none.
Great. Any formal objections to adjourning? Hearing none, we are formally adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Merry
Happy holidays.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone, or happy holidays.
Please take a pastry for the road.
I'm taking one. Don't leave yet.